Week in Review. This week, in a devastating blow to the nation's laundry, 16,000 Americans were reportedly stained during the messiest day in U.S. history. Reports confirm that nearly 3,000 citizens received permanent stains on their good shirt from mustard splatter off a dropped hot dog, along with 12,000 cases of spilled coffee and other dark beverages, ruining Americans' pair of hand-wash-only pants. Government officials further indicated that federal assistance for the nation's overwhelmed dry cleaners would be necessary. And in this week's local news, an elderly Rite Aid patron stretches out a conversation about toothpaste to prolong human contact. In other news, artifacts discovered buried in Washington, D.C. suggest humans once passed laws there. A self-centered child blames his parents' divorce entirely on himself. And a night of uninterrupted sleep really throws off a man's entire day.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Yes, just like Bill and Ted, it's my triumphant return.
I demand to speak to the woman.
Well, you'll have to wait. She's not here right now.
Is she dead?
No. But I do recall her saying something like, the captain's not here, blah, blah, blah. So I'm taking over. So it's definitely Bonnie's world, and we're just living in it.
Just ask Peoples about that one.
Was it a hostile takeover?
No. It was actually helpful to me because I was telling you guys before the show tonight that at first when I was getting sick, I was just thinking it was like a regular ass flu.
It is flu season.
And I say that because when I had the COVIDs, before it was really studied or at least known about and that kind of thing. When I had it, it was like the flu, a little more intense. But my symptoms were completely out of order from a normal flu. Normally I would start with a runny nose, and then some sneezing, and then some coughing, and then the incessant face leaking, where you go through a couple boxes of tissue. And then
sounds like a fun Saturday night.
Yeah. And then of course it migrates into your lungs. Now I was a smoker for a really long time. I've been quit for over a decade. So hopefully, I've got some healing that has happened since then. That's the fable, they say. The first 5 years after you quit smoking, your lungs tend to heal themselves, at least as much as they can, depending on how much damage you did. But I still, because I was a smoker for so long, when it goes into my lungs, it really goes into my lungs. It feels like bronchitis, right? And then it just sort of hangs out there for a while. And then it's the coughing and the coughing up the lung cookies, the lung butter, if you will. And I did have blood in my loogies. Right? So that was new, right? But up until that point, I was just this is just a regular seasonal cold flu kind of thing. And then I lost my sense of taste for 3 days.
Oof.
And that's how I knew I had the COVID the first time, was my sense of taste just went away. And I was well, this sucks. I can't taste anything, right? And so that happened again. And so I stayed away for the requisite, almost 2 weeks. So I came down with it on, a week ago, Tuesday or whatever. And so I missed all of last weekend's shows. Thanks to you guys, and Bonnie and Steve Classic and Off Grid Angie as well, for, doing the job, and having Bonnie fill in, or take over. Take over, as it were. Contrary to popular opinion, no, I'm not dead. Or if I were, I've been resurrected. So
Fake news, Bonnie.
Contrary to what you may have heard on the radio,
Yeah.
on this exact show.
I'm here, and this is where I am. I'd just like to issue that correction. Oh, man. It was not fun. I did not have fun. There was a 3-day stretch, different from the 3-day loss of taste, where I just slept, basically, for 3 days. I only had one moment of, I'm not sure how to describe it, delusion. When I had COVID the first time, I had these weird periods of reality and dreams and thoughts, daydreaming, just sort of meshing into each other, to where I wasn't I was having this sort of dream/daydream that something had happened, and I was like, oh man, I gotta text so-and-so about this. And I actually reached for my phone and picked it up and began texting to it. And then, like, as my brain sort of became aware that I was awake now and not in this lucid dream or whatever, I was like, wait a minute, that was a dream. That didn't happen. What the hell am I doing? Right?
So I'm sending it to him anyway.
I just
Let him figure it out.
I just hit delete or whatever. So I only had one moment of that as opposed to like several moments of that when I had the COVIDs the first time. So I'm significantly better. You'll probably hear a little more Tom Brokaw in my voice tonight.
It's a little scratchy.
It's a little scratchy, but I'm certainly well over the major symptoms. I'm no longer any temperature at all, and I've been free of that for at least 3 days.
You are no longer any temperature?
Well,
that is an
any
impressive feat of
abnormal
physics.
temperature.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're not going to pull a Mark and bring it back into the studio?
No, and in
Okay.
fact, I don't think it was Mark that we got it from.
it was Mark.
I'm pretty sure it was Michael Hampton.
Well, he gave it to Mark.
Well, he
I
gave it
didn't-
to the studio because he came to the studio
Okay.
fresh out of the hospital after one of his
All right.
visits, and then Mark and I both got it simultaneous.
Okay. Well,
Well, Mark was a couple of days ahead of
I
me.
remember sitting in the studio with Mark, who was sick, and he went, "I'm sick. Don't worry. It's not COVID. You know how I know. My cough is not dry. Would you like to see?" And then
How do you see a dry cough?
No, you don't. He was going to like cough up some mucus for us to see that it wasn't a dry COVID cough. Right.
In retrospect,
And then a few days later,
in retrospect, I should
That's
have
when I got
taken a photo of my Bloody Loogies because that would have been a good metal band name.
Okay.
Bloody Loogies.
Thanks for coming out. We are, especially if you're in like England
We
or
are
something.
the Bleeding Loogie.
The Bloody Loogies, right? That'd be a good like
yeah, there you
British, heavy metal band name or something. I'm just thinking because they use the word bloody different than us.
Sounds more like a punk band name to me.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that. Whatever. Could
'Cause
be
it's British.
crossover. Could be
Yeah.
crossover. They're punk and metal.
There you go.
Whatever it is. Either way,
And you really wish you'd gotten the album cover art.
well, that's kind of it's like Metallica's Load. I'm not going to describe to you what that album cover actually is. You can go look for it yourself and figure it out. But like, it would have kind of been the same ish idea. Just like squashing
self-titled
squashing
Bloody
your
Loogies album.
squashing your Bloody Loogie and like what are those little glass things that you do in science class? You put
Beaker?
those two
No,
little plates.
the ones you put
Oh,
in
the
the
microscope plate.
Yeah.
those little plate. You just put your loogie on a plate and then squish it with another
Okay.
plate and then zoom in on it and take a photo of it and that's your album cover.
Got it.
That would have been cool. What's the name of this show, Richie?
Free Talk Live.
What's the telephone number, Peakless?
603
2
283 6160.
That's very good. Very well. You could call in, talk about whatever's on your mind. Bonnie likes to say it's talk radio that you control. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't
Used
know
to be.
that That's like, do you really control it?
I mean,
Like, you can call in and talk about whatever you want, but like, you're
That's-
not really controlling it.
that's taking. It used to be taking control of the airwaves.
Well, no, I think it is. I mean, I've had a lot of times when I wanted to discuss something as a co-host, and we just don't talk about that. We talk about whatever they call in to talk about, and that's what
true.
we're talking about.
You gotta call in more
then smartly, you
Sometimes I do.
are one of the hosts that you call in from time to time.
So we can talk about what I want to
thing-
talk
right,
about.
yeah.
I'm going to call
All
in
right,
and
so-
take control of the airwaves.
Talk radio that Peakless Mountaineer can control.
As long as it's not on my night.
603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich. Happy Insurrection Day.
Happy Insurrection Day to all. When, as we know, the domestic terrorist Donald J. Trump led a gunless coup on the nation's capital, thus overthrowing the United States of America.
I was going to lead with happy everybody learned what lectern means day.
That's fair.
Because
Lectern?
everybody else,
Oh.
no one knew what lectern was. They were like, oh, the guy with the podium. No, he didn't grab a podium.
Oh.
He grabbed a lectern.
The lectern is the thing that sits on top of a table that looks like a podium. It's like a mini
It's
podium.
podium-ish. It's
Yeah.
just a lighter weight
It's a porta-podium.
porta-podium. Yes, that's much precise. Yes. Very, very significant on the point.
Much preciseness. Very wow.
Ironically, I have two podiums in storage.
Podii?
Podii. Because like at one point, like it'd be good to have if we ever wanted to like set up a debate. Right? Like I got two podiums.
Oh,
We just
yeah.
film that.
No, and I have a debate just to use the podiums.
Right.
I don't even
Look at
care
my
about the
beautiful
debate
podium.
itself.
Yeah.
We should use those for something.
They're just sitting in storage, man.
And all right, let me think on that. We could at least use them at the Fork and Pork.
Okay.
Because there's always like people who are like, there's even like impromptu debates that happen where like, during the fest, there'll be some mild drama. And it'll be like, oh, yeah? Well, Bob, why don't you debate me on this? And it'll be like, okay, everybody, there's going to be a debate. It's like a bro down or
I really could just have it handy for when someone just like goes off on a tear and they're on this monologue. You just grab your podium, put it in front of them.
If you're serious about this, right? Like what I really wanted to do a long time ago was have a full-on judged debate, and it was going to be like the pointless debate where whatever you and your buddy were like bickering about, we were going to film it and put it on YouTube or community television or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was going to be full-on Lincoln Douglas style over whatever nonsense you had, right? Like the Browns are the best team in the NFL, right? Well, let's debate it. You're the affirmative, you're the negative, right? Here, prepare your stuff, and we're gonna air this nonsense.
Affirmative, you have 3 minutes to lay out your case.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to come back to the Browns thing in just a second.
Because we're taking the Browns to the Super Bowl this year.
But no, something different than that. We talked about Fork Fest and Pork Fest, so I just want to remind everybody that you can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival and is decentralized, which means there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your campsite, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can connect with other attendees and join the Forkfest Telegram and the Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. Links to those are found at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th, forkfest.party. And also,
I believe we all know that it's the Detroit Lions that are going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
Like they do every year.
Also, I'm told that there is a very good chance that Aria DiMezzo will be out at we'll call it the end of May of this year. And according to what she's told me, I'm able to correspond with her from time to time electronically. She fully intends on being at Fork and Pork. So,
oh man,
awesome.
So, we've got to get a campsite and just build a mini jail to remind her of her time while she was gone.
Oh, God. What a horrible person you are.
We've got to make sure to nail the food, though. That's
okay.
really.
I don't want to, like, what I've heard is that the food is acceptable. Like, it's not, doesn't. I don't know what acceptable is anymore. I mean,
it provides all the nutrients you need to survive for the day.
So it's like that goop on the Matrix,
right?
I gotta.
Here's
imagine,
a bologna sandwich.
I gotta imagine that they're just all they're doing is just buying a bunch of like white labeled, Hungry Man dinners, nuking them up and serving them.
I wish it were that good. Yeah, it's probably not even that good.
I don't know, but that's the rumor. The rumor is the food is surprisingly adequate, at least in the minimum security facility. I think she's FMC. I don't even know.
Whatever you say, man.
So anyway, back to the Cleveland Browns for a minute. Those of you who know sports ball, or at least football, you know that the Cleveland Browns were one of the OG, the original NFL teams. And then one day, they did a midnight move, literally. They packed up all their crap into a bunch of semi-trucks one very, very late night and moved to Baltimore and became the Baltimore Ravens. And then Cleveland didn't have a team for, 5, 6, 8 years, something like that. And then
I forgot about that.
And so the Baltimore Ravens are the Cleveland Browns for all intents and purposes as far as the ownership is concerned. And even at the time, the coaches and the players and all that stuff moved from Cleveland to Baltimore. Now, years passed, so that's all, sort of been cycled through. But
for all we know, it could have been the Cleveland Browns that picked this exact team eventually.
Well, so then years later, the NFL decides to expand. It wants some new franchises. It wants to make the league bigger. And one of the cities awarded a franchise team was Cleveland. And they, of course, chose the Cleveland Browns because, and so then, like,
an
they had
already
to
established brand.
figure out about, like, how the records were going to work because previously the Cleveland Brown records traveled to Baltimore with the Ravens or whatever, this kind of thing. So there was a little bit of a bureaucratic to-do about the whole
Just
thing.
fork the timeline.
Yeah. So it literally is. And so, like, whenever the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens play each other, it's called the Bizarro Bowl because the Cleveland or the Baltimore Ravens
Because it's the alternate
are
universe
the
of
Bizarro
each team.
Cleveland Browns, and then the Cleveland Browns aren't even really the Cleveland Browns. They're the new Cleveland Browns. So, you figure it out. You do the math. What really got me, though, knowing all of this, right? And it's been years since all of that happened, and now it's just, like, kind of funny to, like, people who know the history of it. I just happened to see the other day, it was like a replay on the sports thing or whatever, and the Baltimore Ravens have like an offensive lineman who's named Cleveland.
Nice.
So yeah, big long story. Not much.
I even wish there was a Cleveland Brown. that
Yeah,
was
I wish there
holding
was.
that role.
Well, I wish there was like a Raven
That was
player.
like trademark infringement on the Fox show.
A guy
Yeah, it
named
might be.
a guy named Raven who played for Cleveland would sort of balance it out. Anyway. You mentioned Richie Rich that it is Lectern Day
Okay,
or
if you want to call that.
Podium Day or
I like Happy Insurrection Day.
Happy Insurrection.
Because it's
is
like-
it an insurrection?
No, but
Well, no,
neither
but
did
it
the
gets
4th of July
called
give us
that.
independence. So, because we're still under the thumb of the government.
That's true. I have been known to call the 4th of July Dependence Day.
There you go. So, Surrection Day then?
Surrection.
Outsurrection?
In
Whatever.
out.
I just want
Fatsurrection.
I just want it to be celebrated the same way. Say Happy Insurrection Day. You grill some hot dogs, inside because it's cold up here. Set off some fireworks.
Inside because it's cold out here.
Sure, why not?
So that's what the snakes are for, I always wondered.
Yeah.
Insurrection Day.
Looks like poo as you light it on fire.
Yeah. But it's relatively safe to do indoors.
The spinning flowers. What?
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 What's safe to do indoors? Lighting poo on fire?
No,
No.
the snakes.
The little
those
fireworks that
Yeah, I hate those. Those are like those are the most disappointing thing you set on fire around the 4th of July. Like the only thing no, it's not even. No, I was gonna say those Snap It things, those little
Pop-Pops?
Yeah, they look like dry sperm or
Those are
something.
for kids.
You chuck them on the ground, they go pop.
So are snakes.
Okay, so what's wrong with the captain?
Well, many things.
Honestly,
where do we start? What is wrong with the
the
captain?
pop pops are so much more fun than
Yeah,
the
I
snakes.
was gonna say that the only thing I could think of that's more lame. No, wait, they're not.
We
Not
once
more lame.
We once unwrapped all the Pop-Pops and was putting it in a little Ziploc bag that we were going to explode later.
Yeah.
And then my little cousin wanted to help, and so he was he was helping for a good long time
Okay.
until he accidentally dropped one too hard and just blew the whole bag up right on the picnic table that we were working on.
Are you guys either of you old enough to remember caps?
Mm-hmm.
Like for cap guns?
Oh yeah,
The
absolutely.
Oh,
little
yeah, I had a
roll
cap
of
gun.
red with the little
Yeah.
With caps.
with the little mark in the middle.
Yeah.
Now I was poor, so I didn't have an actual gun to put this roll of caps in. So I got to sit on the front step, which was concrete, of the apartment building in which I lived, and then I had to borrow a hammer from a neighbor because we didn't even have a hammer. And then I also got to hit myself in the thumb repeatedly while trying to, make these things go pow, right, as I hit them one after
There was
the other.
the belt-fed one and the revolver one too. That would
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember other kids having that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I got over it. Not really.
Gotta
Remind-
tell you, as one of those kids, it was awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
We're gonna have to get Captain the pop gun
Cap
for
gun.
Pork Pirates of the Caribbean cap gun.
Different captain.
Oh, sorry.
That's got to be the most dangerous place on earth to play with a cap gun, though.
Where?
Porkfest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Because everyone is actually armed.
Right.
I mean,
Everyone's
but
armed and somebody's on acid. That's
you've-
why.
if you've fired, a real firearm, you know the difference between that sound and the sound of a cap going on.
Unless you're on acid.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know, man. 22s are pretty weak.
That's true. They are.
Yeah, comparable amount of noise there.
Maybe. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I heard a cap gun.
We do have an article from the Epoch Times, and it is titled, "An Explainer of January 6th And it's Aftermath.
Aftermath.
Now,
Still feeling it today.
is this a mansplainer? I haven't read this article, so I
Okay.
don't know. Did you read it?
I skimmed it. I don't know if I'd call it a
Okay.
mansplainer,
All right.
but I mean, you're going to be the one reading it now.
I am a man,
Any woman listening,
and I'm going
this
to
is how it
explain
goes.
this to you. So
Any leftist female still listening to the show,
close
Get
your
your
legs
keyboard
and listen
ready.
up.
I was going to say, you got to spread your knees properly in order to mansplain.
Dear
I'm pretty sure that's
FCC.
how it works.
I was told once that like you could identify like a man in disguise, like if he was wearing a dress, like trying to get away from something. You could
Okay.
identify a man in disguise by like just chucking something that would land relatively in his lap.
okay,
And if he closed the legs, it was a dude, and if he opened the legs, he was a chick, because the chicks
It's actually a
used to,
scene from Tom Sawyer.
chicks used to, they would open so that the dress could catch whatever was falling in it, whereas the men would wear pants, and so they want to close their legs to catch whatever was falling.
interesting theory.
And I've seen this in a couple of different places besides the Tom Sawyer as well. In
Hey, Mark Twain did it first.
I believe that's at least where, in my mind, it originated from. It may have originated before that, though, because he had to observe it in order to write it, right?
Maybe he was on acid and observed it in a dream.
And never the twain shall meet.
Oh. Either way, it's a good theory.
January-
Or just drop something in front of them and let them pick it up. Because like chicks have a lower center of gravity, so they're better at those things.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Generally.
Well, I've been mansplained.
Okay.
Thanks, Richie.
You're welcome.
January 6, 2021. Really? It's been that long ago?
3 years.
And they're still talking about it.
Will forever be
Still the fallout.
a prominent part of American history in ways that few people fully realize.
I believe it's called Aftermath.
It was most certainly a fork in the road, according to the subheadline. It was a day of infamy, worse than Pearl Harbor, 9/11, or even the Civil War. Americans were told. I don't
They
remember
were
being-
told.
I mean,
They were told. It's not true, but they were told.
that is such horse hockey.
You're right. They were lied to, but they were still told.
Like, there was nothing about the guided tour of the Capitol on January 6th that resembled Pearl Harbor, 9/11, or even the Civil War.
There was broken windows and people trying to climb through it and getting
I
shot.
watched
And
like
that's about.
I watched like three separate YouTube feeds of this thing from like people on the ground
Okay.
who were there.
I watched whatever. I watched.
Oh, well,
it
there's
live
your
at work.
problem. You watched actual people with actual footage. What you were supposed to do is turn on CNN and let them tell you what happened.
Yeah, well, I don't trust the
Let them mansplain it to you.
criminal news network, nor do I trust FAU News, FAUX.
Faux
right?
news.
Faux news, yeah. Here's what I saw. I saw grandfathers with canes going, "Don't you dare!" Like, old man shakes fist at cloud
They were
type
climbing
of
walls.
thing. I did
shaking
see
fences.
I did see some scaling of walls.
Yeah.
And thought,
It's the most dangerous day in American history
that looks like fun.
until you get arrested for it.
And they did
603
hunt people down to do that.
603-283-6160. We'll talk more about the something versary?
Insurrection Day.
person?
Insurversary?
Insurrectiversary.
Yeah. Here on Free Talk Live. More coming up.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
to random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Iranian state media reported that at least 100 people were killed in 2 explosions in the city of Kerman. The people had been gathering to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a US airstrike 4 years ago. Julia Chapman has more.
Footage on state television showed rescue workers at the scene of the incident. A spokesperson for the Red Crescent said waves of crowds were making it difficult to move injured people. Earlier, a local news agency had reported that several gas canisters had exploded in the area, but officials in the region later called the incident a terrorist attack. Qasem Soleimani was one of the country's most prominent figures, widely considered to have been the second most powerful man in Iran. He led the Al-Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guard, designated a terrorist organization by the US for its role in overseas operations. Soleimani was assassinated in 2020 in an American drone strike while visiting Iraq.
Authorities in Japan say the Coast Guard plane that collided with a passenger jet at Tokyo's airport wasn't cleared for takeoff when the accident happened. 5 crew members aboard the Coast Guard plane were killed. Patrick Falk reports.
Transcripts of traffic control released by Japanese authorities appear to show the Coast Guard plane that was hit by Japan Airlines 516 hadn't been cleared for takeoff when the accident occurred on Tuesday. The collision left 5 crew members dead and the captain of the Coast Guard plane in critical condition. But the circumstances remain unclear and investigations are ongoing. Experts say it normally takes more than one error for such accidents to occur. Authorities are still trying to determine why the plane was on the runway at the time. Reports also say a strip of lights embedded in the tarmac at Haneda Airport to prevent wrong turns was out of service at the time. Patrick Falk, Tokyo.
The European Union and several member states have condemned the Israeli government for suggesting that Palestinians could be resettled and that Israeli settlements be built in Gaza. The comments from Israel's security and finance ministers drew criticism from the United Nations. Alex Cadier reports.
Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Sweden, France and others have all joined the European Union in condemning comments made by Israeli Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The ministers suggested that Palestinians in Gaza should be subject to so-called voluntary resettlement and that any vacated areas could make way for Israeli settlements in the Strip. The comments drew condemnation from some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States and United Kingdom. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, called the comments inflammatory and irresponsible, and that any resettlement of Palestinians would be a grave violation of international law. Alex Cadier, Brussels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yes, welcome back to Free Talk Live. Live from New Hampshire. It's Saturday night, he says with a little extra Brokaw in his voice. I don't know if that's even true. Do I sound more Brokaw, or do I sound more like Peter Jennings, or a little more Walter Cronkite, perhaps? I'm not even sure if...
The only one I can hear in my head is Brokaw, and I would not say Brokaw.
Okay, all right. Well, either way, I got a little extra something going on in there. Thank you, COVIDs. Although, I have to say that, I had the COVIDs the first time, and, I mean, it took me out. You know what I mean? It put me down for a good almost 2 weeks, right?
Right.
This time I was over the major symptoms in probably 6 days, right? With the hang-on symptoms for another, 5 days or something like that. But it wasn't nearly as crippling. Like, I was able to function. I was able to check in on the show and, even fix a couple of things as it went wrong, even though I wasn't here physically, that kind of a thing. So I was able to check in on stuff and, maintain and that kind of a thing. I wasn't ever incapacitated so much. Although I did get a call from Mr. Ian Freeman, and I had freshly medicated myself, if you know what I mean. And so that was an interesting phone call. There was some, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I'm like, sorry, dude, here, let me repeat what I'm trying to get at. because I was freshly medicated. But that was probably the most. If there was an obstacle, right? That was that was the largest obstacle for me to hurdle. And it occurs to me too that right before I got sick, I did receive a shipment, something I ordered on Amazon.com from China.
Oh, you think you got it from China?
I don't know. I'm just saying. It's weird.
Fresh from the Wuhan lab. Here's your order with COVID.
Yeah, we don't know, right?
It'd be really surreptitious if they put it in like the COVID tests.
They're like, do we ship this guy the COVID package or the non-COVID package? Would you like to sit in the COVID section or the non-COVID section?
Don't give them ideas, man.
I'm actually surprised they didn't do that in the first place.
They almost did with the vaccine cards.
Well, no, they kind of did with the
non-COVID section was your home.
Okay.
Well, no, they did that thing with the whole you can't eat inside, but you can eat outside. So here, let's build another inside-outside so that you're not eating inside.
Right. That was dumb.
Yeah. That was kind of that was definitely the COVID section.
Okay.
Right, if you will. The non-COVID section was just unoccupied.
All
apparently. Right. Oh, that's weird.
Something strange in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Apparently a ghost made him lose his tab.
No.
No.
A technical thing happened, and I had to untechnical it. And so now that I've done that, I saw something, and then
a flash of brilliance.
And then now, no.
Pass the captain by once again.
Well, as it is wont to do. And now I see a totally different thing. So let's go to this unscreened caller. What's your name, please? You're live on the radio.
Hey, bud. Yeah, I'm just a listener, bud. I just wanted to tell you if you can, you're having, it's like you're playing a live show over a tape show on the FM channels, man. I'm just getting some weird stuff.
Really? So it's playing both of them simultaneously?
Yes. Yes, they're playing together.
What station are you listening to?
100.7 in Columbia, South Carolina.
107 Columbia, South Carolina. All right.
What do we do?
Well, I'm going to notify some wizards.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't know if y'all was aware, I mean, it could be a local thing. I don't know, but
we were not aware.
Drive me crazy.
Yeah, no, we were not aware that was happening. We appreciate the notification, and thank you for the call.
I appreciate what you do, bud. Y'all have a good night.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. So from what I understand, the standard method for notifying wizards of anything is that you tell it to a butterfly.
Is it okay?
It worked for Gandalf.
Oh, okay. And the butterfly will deliver the message to the wizard?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Or from the wizard, in this case, to the eagles.
Is it only Gandalf, though, or does that work with, like, Merlin?
Why would you want to get a hold of any other wizard?
I don't know. Aren't there wizards with specialties?
If only Gandalf can do this, I mean, you think they're not gonna catch up on that gap? You think Merlin's just gonna sit back and let Gandalf be the only one that can talk to people via butterfly?
No, I think the enemies are going to send off little moth-looking butterflies to intercept the message and, trick Gandalf. We received the message, but it's been intercepted and decoded.
So you think he's gonna have a butterfly that says, "I'm a Nigerian prince, and if you will just send me this money."
Or more, we got word from the president to launch the nukes, right? And, Gandalf goes, well, the butterfly told me. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, if the butterfly delivered the message, it's
all right,
legit.
Unleash Mordor.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to keep going? We're getting the wrap-up music. Okay, let's do this, because I don't know how long this is going to take, but apparently we have unfinished business. On the concept of rights, as we were discussing last week, prior to Bonnie declaring victory and then moving along. So when we got here, we picked up the discussion and then started the show and kind of tabled the discussion to do live radio. You have I'm gonna because we're on the air, I'm gonna say you have what I'm going to call the lawnmower conception of property rights. Like, I mowed the grass, therefore this is mine.
So the idea that property comes from mixing your labor with nature.
Right. And mowing the grass is sufficient. Mixing of labor with nature.
It is one of an infinite number of examples of mixing your labor with nature. Yep.
And my conception is more so that it must be defended. And when I got to the studio, I said that.
So Which makes sense for you not believing in rights because, okay, if there's no difference between a world with rights and a world without rights, then how would you say that they exist?
And with your conception of it, I believe it's more like hanging out the sign out front that says this is a gun-free zone, right? Or guns not allowed here.
Well,
right?
So here's the difference. So we're going to go ahead and assume that you and I would rather not be shooting each other if we don't have to.
Well, we would assume that.
Mostly because one of us probably has a friend that'd be upset by that, might come after us.
Right.
So if you and I had some dispute over, that's my cell phone, no, that's my cell phone, and then I can say, well, here's my receipt. Okay. Whereas if you go, well, sure, that's your receipt, but I can prove that you stole that money. And then it goes, okay, well, then that would invalidate the claim that that's my cell phone because I stole the money to buy it. The whole idea being that at some point, somebody mixed their labor with nature before anyone else did, and that's what gave them the first claim to the thing.
And I suggested that is insufficient because someone...
So now, the other way of looking at this is, okay, well, I can prove that I bought this cell phone. It's like, yeah, but you bought it with stolen money. Yup, I sure did. Or, by another view, I stole this cell phone. That makes it my rightful property, inasmuch as any right exists under your framework. Okay. Because I am capable of defending it. No one is currently stealing this from me, therefore it is mine.
Yes.
Yes, and that's retarded.
Okay.
That only leads to more and more conflict. Because then, instead of wanting to produce things of value for other individuals so that they willingly exchange things for what I've produced, instead, I just want to specialize in the ability to kill as many people as possible.
You won't get far
because
with
I
that.
will be more effective at defending property if I'm more capable of killing instead of helping.
Okay. And what I'm going to go back because now you're doing like the scooter thing where you just keep going on and on. Your metrics for establishing property from the beginning is insufficient. And the example that I gave last week was wanting to keep a section of property pristine, right? Like I want this river, this hill, this rock, right, to be as it is because that's the way that I...
You're right. It does preclude the very concept of owning unaltered nature.
Right.
Yep. That's the trade-off. Now,
and that's not a trade-off I'm willing to make.
Well, what you get in exchange for that is the possibility of consistency.
And I would disagree with that because if I want to keep it pristine...
So, like, by your view of what people ought to and not ought to be recognized as owning... you should do everything that the government tells you.
No, you should defend it against the government. But let me make my case. I was quiet for you to go on and drone on about cell phones and whatnot. If I want to keep the land pristine, I should be able to do that. And your view of, well, if I come along and mow you the grass, that automatically becomes mine, that, in my view, introduces conflict. And you, in your opening statement, established that we're both trying to set up a system that avoids conflict. And the easiest way to avoid conflict under the system of like, well, it's mine because I've declared it to be so and I can defend it, is just to recognize it as mine instead of trying to establish an alternative claim to it like you would.
Okay, so what are the rules for what you can and cannot claim then?
That which you can and cannot defend. Like that's it. If you can defend it, against...
So then I don't even know what you have and haven't claimed until you shoot me for mowing the grass.
No, because again, you're assuming that everything wants to go to violence, and I'm saying this is a better way to remedy that.
So if you've decided this particular woods, these are my woods, yep. I own them, I'm keeping them natural, yep. and I really want to get some of that wood that's right there that no one's using.
Yep.
Okay.
And I go, hey, Peakless,
how are we supposed to not be at conflict then?
I go, hey, Peakless, like these are my woods.
Why are they yours?
Because I've declared it to be so, and you want to be peaceful, and I want to be peaceful. So I go, Peakless, those are my woods. You know, I want to keep them pristine. And you go, oh, sorry, bro, I didn't know that these were yours.
Oh, well,
I'm not going to chop anything down.
I claimed those woods before you did.
And then now we're at conflict. regardless of whether or not there's grass growing that needs to be mowed down. Because the criminal that would override that and insert conflict is going to insert conflict whether or not you mowed the grass.
How do you know it's right or not? Like, maybe I did actually claim that forest before you did.
Okay.
And that's exactly the conflict that is avoided by going not to just first claim, but to first alteration. By first mixing your labor with that nature. That is an objectively observable phenomenon, whereas, I claimed it.
But it precludes any ability to keep things pristine. Whereas respect for other people's property, which I hope you would do, right, and respecting other people's claims to property, however or not that is recorded, right? Go to the local property registrar and go, yeah, look, he claimed it, right? You could set that system up. It's not necessary, right? You go like, well, this is Rich's woods. You go 3 yards to the left, you can have all the wood you want, right? But 3 yards to the right, you're infringing, right? And if you don't respect it, then we're at conflict just as much. So if you mowed the grass,
my incentive is to bribe the clerk.
If you mowed the grass and I'm not going to respect it, again, it's like putting a sign up that says this is a gun-free zone. Like, I don't care that you mowed the grass. I'm still going to assert my claim against it. And then we're still in conflict. Your solution doesn't remedy any of the conflict. Well, it just pretends to remedy it by putting up a sign that says no conflict zone.
With this, there is a possible way to remain out of conflict. With your system, there is no possible way to remain out of conflict. No, you remain out of conflict
by going like, okay, I respect that this is yours and you want to keep it pristine. Like, that's the non-governmental intervention, right? It's I see that you have claimed this. I'm not going to infringe because
what's
I'm not
the limitation on... So there's no way of knowing how much property you can claim until you are forced to prove that you can defend it. There's no way of knowing what you are and are not capable of defending until I test that.
So don't test it. Or test it.
So
if you want to get into conflict, test it. If you don't want conflict, don't test it.
Right, but how does one know how much property you are capable of defending in the first place? Like, if you claim, I have this 5-acre, patch of property, right?
Yep.
Just for a recognizable number, a figure of measure that, is common, right? You've got 5 acres of property, right?
Yep.
I have no idea which 5 acres are yours.
You're correct. You don't.
So how am I to know that in advance of trespassing?
Again,
or
maybe I register it with a third party.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just inform you that you're trespassing,
mm-hmm.
right? Maybe I have signage marked, to keep it pristine. I put like markers around it.
Right.
That everything within this is pristine.
So it still puts everyone in the position where their incentive is to get as much killing power as possible and then take over as much land as possible because it is then rightfully theirs.
And in your case, all they have to do is mow the grass, and it's the same situation. Whoever mows the most grass owns the most property is equally ludicrous.
Whoever produces the most labor owns the most property.
By mowing the grass. Okay.
Mowing the grass is among infinite number of ways of mixing your labor with property.
But sufficient.
Right.
Help a layman out here.
Yes, what my system incentivizes is labor.
But labor's
of all varieties.
But labor's not the be-all, end-all. Busy work is not productive value either.
Help a layman out here. I have
Help a man get laid?
I have a driveway, and then next to my driveway is the neighbor's driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And if I got my snowblower out, because we're getting a couple feet of snow or whatever, and I, as a courtesy, as a neighborly thing, decide that I got the thing out, it's gassed up, ready to go already anyway, and it's not even that big a deal. I go over and I snowblow the neighbor's driveway. Do I now own the neighbor's driveway?
No.
Why
because
not?
he did it first. He mixed his labor with nature first.
By putting up the driveway.
Right. So you can tell the difference between
he didn't put it up, right?
Either way.
Okay.
It's a traceable
Either
claim.
way. Right. So you can tell the difference between the woods and the driveway.
But how many
somebody
times
mixed their labor with nature?
How many times
thus altering it?
How many times
recognizable?
must I snow blow the neighbor's driveway and or mow the neighbor's lawn until that property becomes mine?
It doesn't.
It never does.
Okay, so you guys can agree on this. What are you arguing about?
I think you should be able to keep land pristine. and his system doesn't allow it.
He thinks that the measurement of whether you have a rightful claim to something is whether or not you can defend it. And I think that is only going to ask for conflict.
Because if your neighbor, if you wanted your neighbor's driveway, right, and you're a criminal, right, it doesn't matter that he put up the driveway, you're just going to take it. And if he doesn't defend it from you taking, it's still going to become yours.
And if we have no social agreements about you can't just take people's stuff.
It's a social agreement. You can already do that with pristine land. That's part of it. It's that social agreement not to infringe on another man's claim that you seem insistent on infringing upon in the name of, well, I'm just going to take it all because I'm bigger and stronger. And that's how some people in society operate. And those are the people that need to be defended against.
Okay,
not the common respectful members of society who will honor another man's claim.
Either side of it, whether you're a good person or a bad person, whether you're trying to get more land,
a good person's not going to infringe,
or whether you are just trying to defend your pristine land, in either case, you are incentivized to be a part of the biggest gang you possibly can.
No, you don't have to be a part of any gang. If people are respectful,
if someone decides that is theirs and they have a bigger gang than you, then it's theirs.
Then you defend against it.
That's the whole point of having a bigger gang than you, is that you can't defend against a bigger gang.
You can't do that anyway. You can't do that in your system anyway, because the bigger gang is going to take over whatever claim, bribe the clerk who's got the records of this is Peakless's mowed grass, and you're going to lose it anyway.
And here's the difference.
Because you sign that says gang-free zone,
if that
doesn't apply to them.
Right. So in my system, I have this property, whatever it is, that I've mixed my labor with nature.
You've mixed your labor with it.
Right.
The gang comes to take it from you.
Right.
And you do what?
Well, so here's the difference.
Nope, you do what? Answer my question. The gang comes to your property, your mowed grass, and says, this is mine.
We're assuming in this case that it is more than I can defend against because it's a bigger gang than me.
Then they're going to take it anyway.
Would you please let me just say this one thing?
One thing.
Okay. The difference is that other people can then not respect their right to that stolen property.
You can do that in my system. That's your one thing.
No, you absolutely
You can do that in this system.
You absolutely
because your neighbors are going to respect your property.
No, because they have defended it, which gives them the highest right. And since defense of property is the only thing that gives you a right to property in your system, then they have every right to then sell parcels of that newly stolen property.
Or have it stolen back by anybody who's willing. They have to be able to defend it. It will be gone just as soon as they got it by someone else willing to claim it. Even if that someone is you on the rebound, licking your wounds, coming back with your neighbor's support. If you want to avoid conflict, you don't do those barriers. You just respect other people's rights. And putting up a sign that says gang-free zone doesn't stop the gang.
And what right would you respect?
The claim to the property in whatever form it may take.
So you're still putting a claim above the actual ability to defend.
No, because you have to defend the claim. You claim it. Most people respect it. You have those people like you who won't respect it.
In order to defend a thing, it has to be claimed, right?
Well, okay, sure, why not?
Okay.
So you claim, like, this is my pristine property.
This is my 1 acre.
One acre. Yeah. I want to keep it the way it is.
Yep.
I like the woods. I like the way the stream flows.
Yep.
I like the bugs being able to go in the grass that's growing naturally. Yep. Right. This is my 1 acre.
I like the annual mosquitoes from the standing water.
Right. Now a gang. Now, this is my 1 acre. I keep it pristine.
Yep.
A gang comes to take it. I defend it, or I don't defend it.
Yep.
If I don't defend it, the gang takes it.
Okay.
Right. In his property system, I mow that grass, and a gang comes to take it, and I'm unable to defend it, even though on paper I have this right to it. I have a right. This is mine. You are not allowed to take it. Has never stopped a criminal in the history of all criminality. Well, they will take it.
So here's the difference.
And then what do you do once they take it?
Well, and here's the difference, is how long you can keep that up. So now, if everyone recognizes that newly stolen property is their rightful property and helps them just as much and trades with them just as much as if they hadn't stolen, If that's the basis of ownership, then they can keep doing that. Whereas if people don't trade with that guy because he's an a-hole, because he's not respecting the basic idea of, well, no, that guy actually put work into this,
that's
and then you
already
came
possible.
along and took it.
That's already possible in my setup. He's got the newfound gang who claims it doesn't automatically get to trade with anybody in the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, the only difference is that I require that your claim be backed up with putting something into it. Instead of just, I get to claim whatever I can take from other people.
It's not what you can take from other people. They will defend against it. It's incentivized against.
That's called taking, is when they defend against it and fail.
Yeah, and then they can come back and anybody else can take it back. It's not like they're going to maraud through, right? And because you stole it from Bill, we're going to trade with you. No, they don't want you infringing on them. They're going to stop you.
Yeah, this is one of the things that a centralized bureaucracy, I'm loath to say, helped humans with, right? Is the registration of things.
Yeah, we don't need
right?
that anymore, though. We have blockchain.
Right, I understand that. But
my
what I'm
pristine
saying is
land registered on the blockchain.
Right. Historically, it would be, hey, Richie Rich has purchased this 1 acre of pristine land from, Bill over here.
Whatever.
And,
okay.
And they
So
exchanged some money, and so they made a certificate or whatever, and they lodged it with the local registrar and or the blockchain, depending on what time you're in.
And a criminal's still not going to recognize that if they want to take it from you.
Correct.
Okay.
So you have to be able to defend.
So if it is equal in validity to you claim this particular forest or you claim all of North America, then it's incentivizing someone to claim what they can't actually defend and just see if everyone falls for it.
Well, that would be wise, and I doubt anyone would fall for it.
However, let's just say this gang takes over, and
you slippery slope all the way down to the most absurd. The most absurd final solution.
A gang takes over.
It's ridiculous.
A gang takes over your 1 acre. You attempt to defend it and fail.
You fail.
Right? Maybe you don't die or whatever, but you fail to defend it and they take it. What is to prevent them from, using your land for their will at this point?
At this point, nothing, but they're going to do that anyway.
No, I disagree. There is stuff to prevent them from using your land for their will, and we can talk about that when we come back. It's Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. Where do you fall on this debate? Are you on the peakless side or the Richie Rich side? Give us a call. Let us know. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Forkfest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Iranian state media reported that at least 100 people were killed in 2 explosions in the city of Kerman. The people had been gathering to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a US airstrike 4 years ago. Julia Chapman has more.
Footage on state television showed rescue workers at the scene of the incident. A spokesperson for the Red Crescent said waves of crowds were making it difficult to move injured people. Earlier, a local news agency had reported that several gas canisters had exploded in the area. But officials in the region later called the incident a terrorist attack. Qasem Soleimani was one of the country's most prominent figures, widely considered to have been the second most powerful man in Iran. He led the Al-Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guard, designated a terrorist organization by the US for its role in overseas operations. Soleimani was assassinated in 2020 in an American drone strike while visiting Iraq.
Authorities in Japan say the Coast Guard plane that collided with a passenger jet at Tokyo's airport wasn't cleared for takeoff when the accident happened. 5 crew members aboard the Coast Guard plane were killed. Patrick Falk reports.
Transcripts of traffic control released by Japanese authorities appear to show the Coast Guard plane that was hit by Japan Airlines 516 hadn't been cleared for takeoff when the accident occurred on Tuesday. The collision left 5 crew members dead and the captain of the Coast Guard plane in critical condition. But the circumstances remain unclear and investigations are ongoing. Experts say it normally takes more than one error for such accidents to occur. Authorities are still trying to determine why the plane was on the runway at the time. Reports also say a strip of lights embedded in the tarmac at Haneda Airport to prevent wrong turns was out of service at the time. Patrick Falk, Tokyo.
The European Union and several member states have condemned the Israeli government for suggesting that Palestinians could be resettled and that Israeli settlements be built in Gaza. The comments from Israel's security and finance ministers drew criticism from the United Nations. Alex Cadier reports.
Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Sweden, France and others have all joined the European Union in condemning comments made by Israeli Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The ministers suggested that Palestinians in Gaza should be subject to so-called voluntary resettlement and that any vacated areas could make way for Israeli settlements in the Strip. The comments drew condemnation from some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States and United Kingdom. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, called the comments inflammatory and irresponsible, and that any resettlement of Palestinians would be a grave violation of international law. Alex Cadier, Brussels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Russia and Ukraine held their biggest exchange of war prisoners since the February 2022 invasion. In a deal mediated by the United Arab Emirates, Moscow and Kyiv swapped over 200 captive soldiers each. The arrangement was not hampered by a massive missile strike Moscow launched on Ukraine on New Year's Eve. Kyiv says another prisoner exchange may happen in the next couple of weeks. Daria Bondarchuk reports.
The exchange of prisoners was the first since August last year. Moscow has exchanged 230 Ukrainian servicemen for 248 Russian military personnel previously held by Kyiv. Negotiations apparently were underway as both sides were engaged in an escalating cycle of air assaults. Neither side has disclosed how many prisoners are still in their custody. The Russian defense minister referred to the negotiation process as complex and said the exchange was possible thanks to the humanitarian mediation efforts of the United Arab Emirates. Daria Bondarchuk, Moscow.
Former Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius has been released from prison on parole almost 11 years after murdering his girlfriend. The disgraced South African sprinter shot Reeva Steenkamp through a door multiple times and claimed he thought she was a burglar. From Pretoria, Ollie Barrett reports.
South African officials say that Oscar Pistorius is now at home. He will face strict parole conditions No consumption of alcohol, no media interviews allowed. He will have to continue rehabilitation programs around gender-based violence and anger management issues. June Steenkamp, the mother of Riva, has issued a statement saying that she is not opposed to Oscar Pistorius' controversial release from prison on parole. He will remain under these parole conditions until the end of his sentence in 2029.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was The Week in...
Studies show that more and more teenagers are leaving Facebook, but where are they going instead? Apparently to the hottest new social media site in years, the comments section of this YouTube video of a deer running in slow motion. Already, its comment section is seeing over 30 million active users. Facebook isn't giving up so easily, incorporating images and videos of deer, elk, reindeer, and even moose into their layout. But teens say that misses the point entirely. In fact, the site's one unwritten rule: don't post anything about the video itself. Teens say that's not cool. But with more and more people swapping over to the comments section of the slow motion deer video by the day, some trend watchers warn it may begin going the way of Facebook.
I was obsessed with it for a while, but now it's just boring. I'm probably going to switch over to Happy Fast Kitchen.
While we don't know for sure, we believe Happy Fast Kitchen might refer to the Yelp page for a Chinese food restaurant in Cleveland, the new social media site where musician Skrillex recently dropped his latest album.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Yes, welcome back. Thank you for listening and tuning in to this Saturday night edition of Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live is a live call-in radio program, nationally syndicated. We're on some satellite channels somewhere, somehow, and we're also on the internet at freetalklive.com. You can choose how you want to listen.
Sometimes on one local radio station twice at the same time.
Sometimes we're so good, we even get played twice at the same time. That's right.
Which seems to have been resolved.
It seems to have been resolved.
That's just how much hunger for the content people have.
I'm not 100% sure. A caller called in and was like, hey, it sounds like there's two things playing at the same time. And so I summoned some wizards. They checked some things. I checked some things. And it seems to have been resolved. I can not confirm that, however. But if you are playing us twice, well, thanks. But also try not to do that. 603-283-6160 is the phone number if you'd like to join us. Before we took a break, we were talking about a scenario where Richie Rich had 1 acre of land. A gang came to take it away from him. He was unable to defend it, and he was like, well, there's nothing I can do.
Well, you can scream like, I have a right,
okay,
right, and it changes nothing.
Or, like, one of the things about property, pre-government, right, let's go to, like, Old West days, right, was that, it was recognized by everybody in the existing community. Oh, that's the Richie Rich Ranch over here.
As it still can be.
And that's so
whether or not I mow the grass.
If a gang came along and took your ranch, your 1 acre,
yep,
right, and you failed to defend it, the rest of the community could still come together and go, hey, look, this gang came from out of town and they took Richie Rich's ranch. Let's all not do any business with him.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Right, et cetera, and so on. So there are things
but
that can be
that's
done.
Impossible in this scenario.
Well, no, if the only thing that is, if the measurement of whether the claim is legitimate or not is simply whether or not they can defend it, then they are now the new owners rightfully.
I think it's
not rightfully.
I think
they have
both.
to defend it. Right.
I think it's both things.
Yes.
I think both. You have to be able to defend it, and your community has to recognize that it's yours.
I've said that. That's my whole proposition from the beginning. Right, rights, property rights in particular, but rights are one of two things: that which everyone agrees upon, or that which you can defend against. That's it. That's my claim.
I don't think it's like in this case. I don't think it's an or. I think it's both. I think if your community recognizes it, right,
you don't have to defend it. Because everyone recognizes
and
it.
here's the difference. my system, we have something that we can ultimately agree upon.
No,
whereas
we don't.
with yours, any time where someone proves that they are more capable of defending that property than the current claimant, then we have to go, oh, well, that's theirs now.
You don't have to go, oh, that's theirs now. You can do what the captain said, come together as a community and take it back.
I have a phrase stuck in my head.
Because they have to defend it.
Because I'm thinking of the Old West, starting up a posse. Right?
Regulators!
Yeah, that's where, you and your community get together because somebody came and took Richie Rich's ranch, even though he wasn't able to defend it himself, right? We recognize that's his.
Right.
We recognize him as a valued part of the community, contributing value, so we got to get together now. We got to go over to Richie Rich's property and evict this guy.
And I shouldn't have to mow the grass to make that happen.
And here's why I'm saying you absolutely should. So the reason that I would want to go help him get his ranch back is because
he mowed the grass.
Can I finish a sentence, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, no, it's going to be the same thing.
How magnanimous
Because
of
you
you.
mowed the grass. Because we have a system where you mixed your labor with nature, and that's how you have the claimant to rights.
Well, how do I know it's your ranch? Because you put up the fence. You built that house. You put your labor into this area before anyone else did. And that's how I know that it's your ranch and someone can't come along and say, actually, that's been my ranch the whole time, because I can go, no, that was nature. And then he put his labor into it. Whereas with your system, it's just as legitimate to say, no, that's my ranch, and I have the bigger claim simply because I can defend it.
As opposed to I have the bigger claim because I mowed the grass in the last 2 weeks.
I just have this thing in my head that I think if Richie Rich did have a ranch, it would be called Ranchy Ranch.
It
would be Ranchy Ranch.
Ranchy Ranch.
Yeah. It's now going to be called that, yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Very well.
So, the difference is, under your system, how are we supposed to figure out whose property to defend?
Because I claimed it. I said from
and how do I know that they didn't claim it too?
From hither to yon.
And if the so is it whoever claims it first?
How long have they been an absentee owner of said unclaimed land? Does anybody in the community remember when little Bill was on the land and it was taken from him, by the Indians or whatever? No. They only know that it's mine because for the duration of their existence.
So can I claim that mountain range and then well, they took this part from me and they defend that. So that part's theirs now. But the rest of the mountain range still mine because I had the first claim.
We talked about this last week. You can absolutely do that. You can make the claim, and if you can get community buy-in.
That makes no sense.
If you can get community buy-in, it's yours. If you can't get community buy-in, it's not yours.
Guys, we have to
you can't even get table buy-in between me and the captain. You can own an entire mountain range.
I'm going to pull a page out of Bonnie's book and go, okay, I'm right, you guys are wrong, we're going to move on now.
Ooh.
Let's go to this caller. I believe this is Rob in Vermont. Rob, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys, what's going on?
Hey, Rob, these guys are in the middle of a heated debate. What's up with you?
Yeah, well, I know I've been sitting here, been listening, and I think that both of those guys, it's a facile argument. Okay, for one reason, why would this gang of thugs want to take Richie's land?
Good question.
Because they want stuff.
They're going to take it regardless. If I mow the lawn or I don't mow the lawn, they're going to take it.
Because it's valuable ranching property that they can then make a lot of money off of selling the beef. Or because they think it's shiny. Whatever.
So with that being said, that's only going to happen once. Because the rest of the community in that area, they're not going to put up with that. They'll hang them.
Why shouldn't they? If the new owner is more capable of defending the property than the previous owner, then why shouldn't they put up with that?
Because if they don't come to Richie's defense, those gang of thugs will take their property.
And they would have to defend it.
Okay. Exactly. How do they know that what makes this claim more valid than the other claim? Is it their ability to defend, or is it that you did something with it and then someone came along later?
Once they take it, they also then have to defend it. It's not like I took it and therefore it's my right because I took it and mowed the grass. Right now it's mine because of the grass being mowed. No, they also have to defend it. one single gang is not going to maraud across the prairie acquiring property unless the gang grows sufficiently.
Have a deed. You know, everyone has a deed to their property.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't even care if by defense means you get property insurance and the insurance company sends out a band of thugs to defend it for you. Right? I don't care. Third-party defense is sufficient.
You know, but if the community doesn't come to Richie's defense, that part of that community will start losing its land by these damn thugs.
If this community believes, as Richie Rich does, that the ultimate claim of a thing is very simply whether or not you can defend it, then they have no reason to go to his defense because this is the new legitimate owner.
But they will because they don't want to have to defend against their land.
It's not,
Well, then they don't believe that defense is the ultimate property.
They do. Because they can't. They're not going to let.
Then why would they take away that property from its new owner?
Because he failed to defend it against the community.
And why should any one of them bother?
Because they don't want to have to defend it on their own.
Exactly. It's a facile argument.
I don't know what that means.
I don't think you're using that word right.
At least he knows what it means.
Maybe. All right. But I agree with Richie.
As you should.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anything else on your mind tonight?
That's not the reason why I called. I have some exciting news to share with my Judeo-Christian brothers here.
You just saved a load of money on your car insurance by switching to Geico?
No.
Oh, okay.
There's a brand new cannabis store open up here in Rockingham, Vermont. It's called Rolling 20s.
Of course it is. That's better than the one that I lived near in Seattle. It was called The Pot Shop.
Clever.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you geniuses really put a lot of work into that name, huh?
They got to get stoned before they come up with names for their shops.
Their logo was a circle with like regular block letter stenciled The Pot Shop inside the circle. That was it. Very creative.
I've never been to any of these
So
places.
if you're in the area of Rockingham, Vermont, go visit these guys. They got some good stuff.
Do you get a referral bonus?
Good stuff.
Like one free joint for every 5 people that come in and drop your name?
I can get all the weed I want for nothing. Because I go see the weed fairy.
I don't know what that means or what it's implying.
So Rob, what do they have there? Do they have bud? Do they have edibles? Or they got beverages? What do they got?
Yeah, they got bud, and they got some edibles, and I talked with the owner. I know who the owner is, and I suggested to get some drinks.
Okay.
You know.
Yep.
And they're going to try to make that happen.
Nice. All
yeah.
right.
You know, and a while back, somebody gave me a cannabis-infused drink. And so I took a picture of the can, and I saved it. So when I saw the owner, I said, this is the stuff.
Budweiser? Budweiser Light?
Was it watermelon or something like that? I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know either. So there's a joke about taking it in the can in there somewhere.
Okay.
Bud. Weed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Rob, I hope you enjoy the medicinal and recreational qualities of said marijuana. And, hopefully the tax man isn't raping them as much as they are in, every other state that has opened recreational marijuana stores. Because I know for a fact that, at least in the Washington state area, they are taxed at least 1/3 at every level. So the grower gets taxed 1/3, the distributor gets taxed 1/3, and then the retailers get taxed 1/3.
Well, neither myself nor the weed fairy get taxed.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, amen to that. Hey, thanks for the call, Rob. We appreciate you. 603-283-6160. Let's move on to this unscreened caller. What's your name, please?
It's your boy.
How did you not have that caller ID?
Well, it is. He's calling from a different number. He thinks he's clever.
Oh,
yeah. But you're on right now.
Clever boy.
You're on here. Thinks he's clever
from his boyfriend's phone.
No, it's your boy, the Evolutionary Cap. Say, I've been listening to
your nonsensical property debate. You know why it's so nonsensical, this debate between Rich and the homeless mountaineer?
Because it doesn't involve evolutionary
the
capitalism.
homeless mountaineer? Wow, that's me.
Because you're omitting the very two things that are the essence of logic and motivation. It transcends even stupid praxeology. You guys are
lay it on us, man. What are the two things? What are the two things?
You guys are omitting profit and evolution, and that's your problem. Because it all doesn't make sense. Defense doesn't make sense unless it's profitable, right?
No, not everything has to be done for a profit.
Just think about it. On a desert
I
island,
just did.
there's no humans, right?
Nothing has to be done for profit. Not everything has to be done for profit. That's why even in a capitalist system, you have what are known as non-profits.
Profitability and evolution determine sustainability. Like if you're like, why would a society defend a property for somebody just because it's a sunk cost fallacy, right? Why would
I don't think you know what that means. This is the second time you brought up the sunk cost fallacy, and I still think you're using it wrong.
Who owns it by? Would you make them stop interrupting?
I can't make them do anything.
Homesteaded something, expended resources to homestead it, right? And that is a sunk cost when you look at the past actions. Of
that doesn't mean it's a
even
sunk cost
citizen of
fallacy.
Society for property.
Like because I bought some collectible toys, doesn't make it a sunk cost. It just makes it a cost.
No, I'm talking about homesteading.
I got it. Same idea.
About mowing the lawn, right, or mowing the grass on
right, but that's not the sunk cost fallacy.
That is.
It is just a cost.
You look at something in the back where you look at past actions that you've wasted resources on.
It doesn't matter.
That should not determine on what you do in the future.
That's not the sunk cost fallacy.
Yes, it is. When you forget it, let's just call it some other type of fallacy then, since you're too ignorant. Okay,
it's not a fallacy.
Looking in the past,
it's just a cost.
Who homesteaded something is nonsensical when you don't look at profit. I would not help you defend that property unless it's profitable for society, because you may not like it, but the economy is a collective evolutionary machine, right? It cares about allocating property to those who best use it for society, and you have to grasp that in order to make sense of everything.
Yeah, well, it also, again, ignores the fact that some people will like to keep it pristine.
It doesn't matter if you want to keep it pristine.
It absolutely does.
Evolution only cares about, first, how it goes toward, again, building the perfect evolutionary being, but that's evolutionary profit, right? But let's
go on.
Let's just use monetary profit as a proxy because it's easier to talk about.
I'm not trying to make a profit. I'm attributing a non-monetary value to the pristine nature that's out there.
It's easier to quantify when you put a dollar amount on it.
You can't quantify it because it doesn't have a dollar value. It is a non-monetary value. It's emotional value.
Well, that's not necessarily mutually exclusive, though. So, okay, you like this piece of nature being preserved because, it's a joy to you to experience.
Right.
Now, in theory, there are people that are like you that you could say charge a cost to enter this area because of what an absolutely beautiful area it is.
I absolutely could.
If you were to do that, if you chose to do that, then we could have someone else who's doing the same thing, and whichever one of you is doing it better will make more money.
You're correct.
Off of offering that. And that would give us a numerical value to that psychic profit, as it were.
You could absolutely apply numerical value to it if that were my goal. That is not my goal, and it doesn't have to be my goal. I do not have to own property for the sheer benefit of profit. I can just have the property.
Am I muted?
Nope. Just ignored.
It doesn't,
you should be used to that.
It doesn't matter what your psychic profit is. Evolution doesn't care about psychic profit.
Actually, it very much does.
Then it doesn't apply to this situation.
No, evolution very much cares about the psychic well-being of those who are participating in it.
No, it does.
Yeah, no. If you are more mentally healthy, you will be more capable of competing evolutionarily.
Say that again.
If you are more mentally healthy, you will be more capable of competing evolutionarily.
No, there's a balance. Evolution molds your mentality. We all gravitate. It molded all pleasure and happiness toward its goal. And
would you agree or disagree, Skeeter, that a less mentally capable person tends to evolve less than a more mentally capable person?
No, not necessarily. So I have
The only thing evolving from Skeeter is his ability to mate with the tiles on the shower wall.
It's called the parasitic effect or evolutionary compensation. When you have a deficiency, evolution kind of compensates by evolving that group faster because it has higher evolutionary pressure on them.
Okay, hold on, because I'm trying to grasp this
right?
concept. So right now we have a deficiency of quality callers. And so evolution has said that we're going to have to put you on the air.
That can determine that. So
I still don't know how it applies to my
someone's
pristine piece of property.
No, it doesn't matter if you want to keep it pristine or not. Let's say there's the cure for cancer on that, but you have to demolish that land in order to get it.
They made a
right?
movie about that. It's called Medicine Man
I don't care.
with Sean Connery.
I'm old, man. You're old. So, like, if you wanted to keep that cancer curing land pristine, society, evolution will fight you.
Yeah, they would. And then I'd have to defend it, wouldn't I?
If you try to keep that land pristine, because the evolutionary profit of destroying that piece of land for that cure is greater than keeping that pristine. I mean, you could try to make a case that there's some other objective.
No, I'd have to find a way to defend it or pay for its defense.
You wouldn't be, because all the society would fight you on that to cure cancer.
Then I would lose the property.
All right.
I'm going to challenge
productive people with cancer.
I'm going to challenge Skeeter to come up with a. Hey, thanks for the call, man. I'm going to challenge Skeeter, if he's still listening, to come up with an example that isn't what we call edge or fringe hypothetical.
Even his hypothetical, if all of society is against me, they're going to take the property. I'm not going to be able to defend it against all of society.
Okay.
If I mowed the grass and all of society is against me, I'm not going to be able to defend that piece of property against all of society.
Okay.
Even though I put a sign up out front that says grass has been mowed,
so
please don't steal my property.
So here's the idea in this particular example. So let's say that instead of just your version of it, we have, because yours it cannot be held consistent ultimately. Now, let's say we have something that can be held consistent, and we have a society that believes in the labor theory of property. Like, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Okay. Now, let's say I've planted this tree that has these cancer-curing properties, but I have chosen not to share the fruit of this tree with society because I don't feel like it.
They're going to steal it from you.
Maybe.
They're going to steal it
maybe.
from you. No,
so
not
at
maybe.
At that point, they have to make a judgment call of would they prefer to have solid property rights, which allows them to benefit from their own labor, or would they rather have the cure for cancer?
They're going to take the cure for cancer.
Why wouldn't they instead try to negotiate?
Because he already said he's not going to sell
And here's the difference. This cure for cancer might be withheld from them, but by holding on to property rights, you can find other cures for cancer. Whereas if you destroy property rights, then people don't bother to do things that they would do because they can't benefit from that labor.
Hey, guess what? If they value that anyway, then it doesn't matter if I mowed the grass. They're going to respect that cancer-curing tree is on my claim. And they're going to leave it be because they value their claim. And it works the same way, except I can keep my land pristine in my example, and I need to mow my grass in yours.
Can one of you guys come over and mow my lawn this summer?
Yeah.
Call Skeeter.
So the difference being...
He's got the mouth for it.
If it's simply a matter of who changed nature first, then we have an ultimate answer for whose property something is. Whereas if it is simply a matter of who can defend it, that can change from moment to moment, and there's no stability of property.
No, the stability is in the claim. If I claim
and the claim is based on defense, which changes moment to moment.
And so does your mowing the grass.
No,
if they want
someone
to take
did it first.
But they're going to take it anyway. It's the sign out front.
603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is coming your way. We've got more stuff to talk about, including the rest of this recap of the anniversary of the insurrection. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Iranian state media reported that at least 100 people were killed in 2 explosions in the city of Kerman. The people had been gathering to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a US airstrike 4 years ago. Julia Chapman has more.
Footage on state television showed rescue workers at the scene of the incident. A spokesperson for the Red Crescent said waves of crowds were making it difficult to move injured people. Earlier, a local news agency had reported that several gas canisters had exploded in the area, but officials in the region later called the incident a terrorist attack. Qasem Soleimani was one of the country's most prominent figures, widely considered to have been the second most powerful man in Iran. He led the Al-Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guard, designated a terrorist organization by the US for its role in overseas operations. Soleimani was assassinated in 2020 in an American drone strike while visiting Iraq.
Authorities in Japan say the Coast Guard plane that collided with a passenger jet at Tokyo's airport wasn't cleared for takeoff when the accident happened. 5 crew members aboard the Coast Guard plane were killed. Patrick Falk reports.
Transcripts of traffic control released by Japanese authorities appear to show the Coast Guard plane that was hit by Japan Airlines 516 hadn't been cleared for takeoff when the accident occurred on Tuesday. The collision left 5 crew members dead and the captain of the Coast Guard plane in critical condition. But the circumstances remain unclear and investigations are ongoing. Experts say it normally takes more than one error for such accidents to occur. Authorities are still trying to determine why the plane was on the runway at the time. Reports also say a strip of lights embedded in the tarmac at Haneda Airport to prevent wrong turns was out of service at the time. Patrick Falk, Tokyo.
The European Union and several member states have condemned the Israeli government for suggesting that Palestinians could be resettled and that Israeli settlements be built in Gaza. The comments from Israel's security and finance ministers drew criticism from the United Nations. Alex Cadier reports.
Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Sweden, France and others have all joined the European Union in condemning comments made by Israeli Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The ministers suggested that Palestinians in Gaza should be subject to so-called voluntary resettlement and that any vacated areas could make way for Israeli settlements in the Strip. The comments drew condemnation from some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States and United Kingdom. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, called the comments inflammatory and irresponsible and that any resettlement of Palestinians would be a grave violation of international law. Alex Cadier, Brussels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
How come when a girl says the same thing twice, it changes the meaning? You know, like when a girl says, was it a date?
Yep.
It's different than when a girl says, was it a date? It changes the meaning because she said it twice.
Yep.
Do you like her or do you like her?
Tribute to Henry Cho. Anyway, it's Free Talk Live. We were talking about Henry Cho during the break for reasons. We go on tangents. We don't know.
Jonely Bonely from Bodley Go.
And then my guy friend came up and said, was it a date? And I said, yeah, it was a date. I spent money. And I didn't even get a kiss. The telephone number here, if you'd like to join us, 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
Before we go on, I need to tell you that this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized, autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash master nodes. The master nodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by the treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and it's in multi-crypto wallets, too. It's easy to get and easy to use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org, and big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. That's dash.org. All right, we've got a couple of calls to get to. Let's go to this unscreened caller. What's your name, please?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. What's your name? You're on the air.
Okay. This is Eric from California.
Hey, Eric.
And I just want to let you know they're playing a rerun of your show on our local radio station right now.
So much goofing off going on.
What's the station?
K News 98.5.
K News 98.
Yeah, it was the show when you guys are talking about hair metal and like the Taco Bell sex parties.
Wow, that's some time ago too. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have our wizards check into that. Did you want to talk about anything while we have you on the air?
Well, I was kind of wondering, do you think it might have to do with when Bonnie had the hot mic right before the show the other day?
I've heard stories about this hot mic.
I've looked into that myself with some other wizards, and we've cast the appropriate spells to remedy that. However, we do have a network that's involved between us and the radio stations as well. So I'm having them deploy some wizards as well as we speak. So I do appreciate the notification.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Hey, thanks for the call, man. We appreciate you.
A lot of screwiness going on tonight.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
And elsewhere.
That's Bill and Ted? Or
that's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Okay, all right. Just making sure I get my cultural references.
Rufus!
Which is an anomaly because they hadn't introduced himself yet.
Let's go to this guy. I believe this is Ricky on the Commonwealth.
Thank you there, Brother Captain. Brother Richie, Peakless Mountaineer, good evening.
Good evening.
No, I'm sitting here, and it just boggles my mind. Personally, I remember from the beginning, I'd like to know what rock Scuzzy crawled from under. I'd like to see him go back there. I mean, talk about radio you control. This is the truth. You will let just about damn near anybody on there, and I'm tired of hearing his falsities.
It's his mom's basement in California.
It may be. Oh, I don't know. No, this is the kind of guy that grows up to be a serial killer, like the Unabomber or something.
Well, then you should really thank us for, helping get rid of that nervous energy so that he doesn't go all Unabomber.
He's also admittedly got Asperger's, so
he's definitely an angry son of a bitch, and that's the worst thing. Half the time you can't even tell, because he doesn't have a very good grasp of the English language, what he's actually angry at.
It's true.
Yeah.
So
But
he's got Asperger's
now that-
and thinks he's smarter than everybody else.
Oh,
And-
yeah, I'm sure he does. And you know what? That's something we should have a whole show on. Who's smarter than Scuzzy's smarter than everybody? How many think that? We could have a discussion about that one. I don't know if he'll call in.
But part of the realization he has to come to terms with is that if he's truly smarter than everybody else, he's got to find a way to communicate his thoughts better with us dullards. And he has failed at that at every turn.
I mean, he might want to look that one up in the dictionary and use falsity, because that's right where it's at. He's looking for, and he could benefit from the product of an education, But anyways, that being aside, Richie, you're the one I want to speak to, because I want to finalize this bet. I think we made great progress with Bonnie. I think we can.
Yeah, we're 2 for 3 here.
Tonight.
So I've been advised by Peakless to just outright accept your third bet. And so I'm inclined to do that without actual numbers and definitions.
Because it is technically impossible.
So I accept your third proposition.
Plus, a third world country is pretty defining, and it's going to be pretty damn bad.
No, that's the thing.
Well, don't let him in on the secret now, Peakless. Jesus. Oh, no, go ahead.
We talked to him about this last week.
Like
a third world country is defined as, so it's not the first world, which is America, and it's not the second world, which is the USSR. That makes it the third world.
Right.
So America, by definition, is going to be the first world.
So I accept your 5-.
I mean, I could see an ounce of gold for a pack of Camel non-filter.
That would not make the criteria for America being a third world.
I'd say it'd be a total disaster.
Okay. That's not how we defined it before.
What do you call that, Richie? That's oblivion, brother.
Well, we came to terms with third world. America would be the third world, and that's the latest part of it.
I better quit while I'm ahead. Okay, so let's seal the bet there. So I said I'll get that 150. Well,
that 5- per. So 15-.
At its current price at the beginning of 2025. I said I'll do that.
No. Not 5- at the current price.
No,
it's 5-.
5-.
Richie, you ever think about anything but money? Of course I do.
No, I'm Richie Rich. That's all I think about.
Well, that's the problem.
You'd think that Ricky had listened to this program often enough to know the answer to that question. No, Richie Rich only thinks about...
Well, wait a minute there. This whole land discussion. I'm sitting here wearing my battle flag. There's one thing you're forgetting about, Richie. It's called the Union. I think they take claim to the land. So in your case, unless Ricky from the Commonwealth blows it away and you move to the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania, I'd say it's completely pointless.
Well, no, it's not pointless because part of my proposition is that those with claim to the land ought to defend it against government imposition. If a government agent attempts to take your land and you don't want them to take it, you ought to defend against it.
And then we find out whether your claim was valid on whether or not you're able to defend it. So this 5 minutes, my claim might be valid because I'm totally capable of defending it. And then 5 minutes from now, my claim is invalid because I'm unable to defend it.
Well, if they take it, then yeah. But again,
and then no one has any reason to help me get it back because my claim wasn't valid when they took it.
They absolutely have the incentive to help you get it back because it helps them honor their own claim as well. That's the marauding band that comes through and takes everyone's land is going to be the government, and you have to put up a collective defense against their aggression.
Well, here's the thing, in all honesty. The fact of the matter is, I have a concern, but it's not much of one because people aren't stupid. They understand. Now, when Ricky from the Commonwealth, as the vessel, blows that damn bitch away, we become the Confederate Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, of course they're going to want the land, and they're going to come get it. But people aren't afraid of that. I will say in 2017, they seem to be a little more leery, a little more guarded. Now people are more apt to talk openly in front of people and be in support of the concept. And I'd say that's very positive.
Which concept?
Blowing away the U.S. Constitution.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say that's very positive. Everywhere I go, I will say they warm up to me because I am the one captain, no doubt.
No, I'm the captain. No, you look at me. I am the captain.
Captain. I know you're the captain. You are the captain, no doubt.
I'm just kidding. I'm one of many captains. I come from a lineage of captains: Crunch, Kangaroo, right?
Caveman.
Caveman. Yeah, these are all a long list of captains that came before me.
You know who I don't like anymore? Well, Captain Planet. What a scumbag that guy is.
I never liked it.
Turns out.
I never liked it, Richie.
Okay. You're a smarter kid than me then.
You did. I can't believe
I was brainwashed as a child, man. It took some time to overcome that.
Yeah, little did I know that Captain Planet's ultimate job was just to sell me carbon credits.
That's right up there with the 4 food groups and all that garbage, Yeah. That was my generation. But the fact of the matter is I'm glad we sealed this bet for 5-. It will be there at the beginning of 2025.
To be clear, 5- per bet. So the national gas average will be $10 or more. Will be a minimum of $10, right? You got to put up 5 for that. The dollar value of the United States dollar will be effectively zero.
Okay, I understand that,
Okay.
Richie. Okay, you want 5 per bet. You're
So
a
it's
piece of
15
work.
total dash,
Well,
but
that's why you're
it's not
Richie
winner
Rich and
take
I'm
all.
Richie from the Commonwealth.
But it's not winner take all.
Right.
It's 5 per.
Okay, so it's going to be each bet. Well, if you win the bet, fine. So if I lose
Right.
one,
You
I
can
would have
lose
to
one
pay
and win
2.
two. Yeah.
Damn it, Richie,
So,
you're actually sounding
isn't it-
reasonable. You're starting to scare me.
Isn't it impossible for him to win both of those two established bets?
Yeah, probably.
Because
Right,
if
but now what
the
fact of
dollar
matter is,
spends
if I
for
win the third one,
anything,
it doesn't matter.
like if the dollar has any value, that would be necessary for there to be at least
That's my whole
$10
point. Richie's
gasoline.
not really thinking.
Whereas if the dollar's worth nothing, then gasoline can't possibly be $10 a gallon or more.
I have no qualms betting against morons.
Can one of you, let's go with Richie Rich, can you, for the people who just tuned in, can you summarize and restate this bet with Ricky from the Commonwealth?
So there's 5 We're going to each put 5 into Peakless's trust.
Okay.
At the beginning of 2025.
Peakless escrow near?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the beginning of 2025, the national average for gas, like the regular price of gasoline, will exceed $10. At the beginning of 2025, the value of the United States dollar, the Federal Reserve note, that commonly referred to as the dollar, will be zero. Like it will have zero value.
That's not true. That's wrong. I said by the end of 2020.
Okay, fine. By the end of 2020.
Price will go sky high in July.
Okay, by the end of
Okay,
2025, national average of gas will be $10 or exceed $10.
No. July, Richie. July.
All right, you
I'll
do it
repeat
then.
it. July for the gas prices, and then the end of the 2025 for the dollar, and then the end of the
Okay,
first
no, that
quarter
makes more sense. So
for the third world
by the
country.
end of July, gas prices will be at least $10 on average
July
throughout
of
the
2025 now?
Yep.
Whereas by the end of the year,
it'll be zero.
It'll
The
be
dollar will
like
fall.
you just won't be able to buy gasoline with dollars.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't matter. And then by the end of the first quarter of 2026, we'll be a third world country.
Okay, all right. So is there 3 bets or just 2?
3 separate bets for 5
Richie
apiece.
wants to do it because he wants to line in his pockets, but we'll see. He wants to make it up the ante. I'll do it.
Okay, so who is on which side of what?
If gas exceeds $10 per gallon,
yes,
I pay Ricky.
Okay.
I say at least hits $10 even.
I got you. Go ahead, Richie.
Okay. If the dollar hits zero, and you can't spend $1 on anything, I pay Ricky.
Okay.
And if the United States is a third world country, I pay Ricky.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But if the national average for gas is below $10, and you can buy anything at the end of 2025 with dollars, right? Shopping season coming up.
Yep.
There's just one thing you're not thinking
And the United
about.
States is still defined as a first world country or a second world country.
Right.
As
Now,
long
there's
as it's
a
not a third
reason
world country,
why.
Yep.
There's
then
a reason
Ricky
why I
pays me.
put it the way that I did, because when the dollar falls, it's going to have a big impact on Dash.
It might, but we're only betting in Dash. So
Well,
and you ought
when the
purchase
dollar
your Dash.
falls, Dash will be worth an extraordinary number of dollars.
And then just because I like to complete things, each one of these 3 bets is $5 or 5
dash.
not
Yes.
$5, 5 dash.
5 Dash.
Got it.
Which
Okay.
Peakless
Sounds
will
appropriate.
hold in
So it
trust.
sounds like a deal.
When
So it
does
sounds like
the
you got a deal
dash
with Ricky
go
from the
into the
Commonwealth.
trust?
Remember it, Captain. Put it in your log.
Captain's log.
As soon as they give it to me.
Oh yeah. When do each of you put your 5 dash or 15 dash? I guess.
I said before the beginning of 2025. Let's say around February.
I'm pretty sure that I've already got it. I'm going to wait until Peakless secures Ricky's
I sure
dash
as
before
hell
I give
don't,
mine to
but
Peakless.
I'll get it.
All right.
I need time anyways.
Ball
But
is
it
in your
works
court
out.
though.
You ought not take time, Ricky. If your predictions are going to come true, the value of Dash is going to continue to
Well, don't worry,
rise.
brother. I ain't gonna take. And by the way, I've never used cryptocurrency before. This will be the very first time.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, I'm glad
Awesome.
something good comes out of this bet.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
No doubt.
This is great.
Isn't it though? And I figured, why not a sponsor? You might as well. Plus, they do say it's the best for blind people. And I remember speaking to that man, and it sounds like something that's hip to me. So why not?
Yeah, Riley is on. Is he on Wednesdays? He's on either Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure. but he is able to use cryptocurrency and is a blind man. So he might be somebody you want to ask those questions, like what does he use, what app does he use, and that kind of a thing to do
I
his
think I will
transactions.
just do that.
So he's pretty
So
regular.
I'm going to start working that, and
But enough about his
we'll
bowel
definitely
movements.
do it. What's the deal then? It's done deal.
Sorry, that was a really
Done deal.
crappy
We finally
joke.
made it.
Virtual
We
handshake,
finally
Ricky.
made it. It took 3 calls, but we made it.
Well, because I'm relinquishing the fact that we needed a definition for third world country.
I
Like-
think it's bad enough, don't you, Richie?
Oh, that's a good question. What is a third
No,
world
we're
country?
not going to define it because that's where we got hung up last week with Bonnie.
Right.
You can't define it.
What's a first world country?
The United States of America.
That's the only first world country?
Per Peakless's definition, and Peakless is going to be the arbiter and
Okay, all
trust
right,
of the
okay.
dash.
It's
All right,
going to be an
I'm okay with
economic disaster
So then what's a second
on biblical
world country?
epic proportions
USSR,
like this world has
or
never
Russia.
seen.
What about
We are
like
going to suffer.
what about like
We
you know,
will suffer, Richie.
Europe, if you will, like westernized, I'm thinking Ireland and England and
This is a question for
Spain and-
Peakless.
It is going to be a big. Crypto will go up, but also it's going to be a big problem because you cannot use cash to buy crypto. So it's going to be an interesting experiment right there.
That's why you got to use cash to buy crypto now while it's still possible.
I know, but it's not a very positive future. We're going to have a lot of experiments.
I disagree completely. I think this
I'd like
is,
to know how
it's
the
going to
hell
be a
we're gonna pay
rough
our workers.
transition, no doubt. No doubt on the rough transition, but I think that this is the best possible way of getting to a decent future. So one of two things is going to happen. Either the U.S. is still going to be the great superpower, or it's not. Now, if it continues to be the great superpower, sooner or later we're going to have a nuclear exchange. Because this superpower goes about seeking enemies to destroy and picking fights with other nuclear powers on the regular. Sooner or later, that will result in a nuclear exchange.
And at the end of this year, we're going to vote in Donald Trump, and by the end of 2025, America will be great again, and I'll win the bet.
Well, speaking of that, I do have all my battle flags, so I don't
is that you?
It's like,
that's like a total disaster.
all of a sudden, Peakless and Richie became comedians during this segment, and they're pulling like my style jokes. Like, what's going on here, man? I didn't take any cold medication today that I remember anyway. This is a little loopy for me.
I told you, 2024,
No,
Return
no
of the
doubt,
MAGA.
no
This is
doubt.
it.
I'm still trying to figure out, Rob's, sauce
A New
he's
Hope,
getting.
The
What do
Empire
they
Strikes
call that
Back,
for his weed,
Return of the MAGA.
What's
You know,
that?
that's-
What's that, Ricky? You're trying to figure out Rob?
That
What?
Rob gets his free weed. I mean, how come only Rob? What has he got going on there?
Okay,
What does he
like
give his
I
trade
don't
on?
know the answer to this question, but let's just think about this logically for a minute.
Same way Bob Saget got his cocaine.
He grew
Oh
it.
my! This is Rob from Vermont we're talking about.
Like,
This is not Bob Saget.
I can make fun of Rob too. Jeez.
Like if I had no money, but I had some land and I had some seeds, how could I go about, getting what I wanted?
Okay, I could. Okay, Captain, don't even make me want to think this way, and it's on the radio too, so I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah, all right, fine. What else did you want to talk about tonight, Ricky?
No, I just wanted to say that I love Brother Ian, and I hope that he, comes back, and he'll be back for 2025 because it was originally him that I spoke about when I made the predictions.
I do want to say I did get a chance to speak to him briefly a couple of days ago, albeit I was a little loopy on some fresh medication. But he is doing fine. He's keeping himself very busy. He's got himself a schedule. He's got tasks. He's got, he's like, actually, I got to go, dude. I got something else I got to do. Like,
he's going to come out
okay.
with a best-selling book, and he's going to be jacked for the first time in his life.
Yeah, I don't know. Is he writing books? Is he? I have no idea. But like, he's keeping himself busy. He's staying involved in the let's call it the day-to-day operations behind the scenes of Free Talk Live. Somehow, he's aware of what's going on. He's keeping us abreast of changes that are upcoming and
He's
all
like
that
El
kind
Chapo
of stuff
for Free Talk Live.
It's the greatest thing, but also the weirdest thing. But he did say that he has received a bunch of letters from everybody, all you listeners out there who've written to him, and he is very grateful for having received those. He loves to receive those as well. He tries to communicate back to everybody, although it does take him a while. And he also says that sometimes the penmanship of some letters could use some improvement.
What a critic.
No, but you know what? At least we are able to communicate with him. It's not like he's on lockdown and solitary or something. At least we're able to communicate in this, that he, we keep rolling this network that he created that is more important than just about anything.
Oh, yeah.
Because without this network, things wouldn't just be the same on the airwaves, no doubt.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and that's one of the reasons I continue to sit in this seat. It would have been real easy post first Fed raid or second Fed raid for Free Talk Live to just sort of be like, well, I guess they put us out of business. Or I guess they took out the guy who created the thing, and it would have been real easy. But I'm not built that way, at least for my part in keeping this thing alive. To me, Free Talk Live is a beacon of hope in a world of crap. It is, it used to be to me that it was like, oh my gosh, this is how we're gonna change the hearts and minds of people. But I realize now that is not the best strategy. The best strategy is not to try and change the hearts and minds of the regular people. The best strategy is to simply attract people who have already come to the conclusion that statism is evil and needs to go the way of the dodo.
Well, we all love Brother Ian for this wonderful network that he's created, and nobody can say that more than enough on the airwaves.
I wonder how that makes Mark feel.
Well,
he's the co-owner.
He's been on Thursdays pretty regularly, and I'm hoping to have him on one of the weekend shows coming up here pretty quick, so we can ask him that
I get
directly.
it. He just gets no credit.
Yeah, but how are you supposed to compete with a martyr?
Yeah, it's fair. All right.
Yeah. He does claim to be a king as well. So, okay. Ricky,
he's sort of the
thank
John
you for the
Baptist
comment.
at this point. Yeah,
so
Jesus gets
it?
all the press.
Okay.
He is a self-proclaimed intergalactic space king?
Not anymore.
No?
I actually took up that title.
Oh, well then what is
he
Mark
is,
then?
however, an intergalactic space wizard.
Oh. I really...
It's more democratic,
Does he talk
I guess.
to butterflies?
Wizard, though? Like...
Space butterflies.
Space butterflies.
I guess
so, in Dr. Dolittle, there's a moth that goes between Earth and the moon.
Okay.
Those.
All right.
I guess I'm used to using the word wizard in referring to like technician or, smarter guy than me.
The only
Right,
butterfly
kind
I
of
want
thing.
to talk to is the one on her lower back.
Brittany?
That's a wide variety of selections to choose from, man.
I'll take them all.
There are so many tramp stamps out in the world.
Just the butterflies.
That are even just the butterflies.
Okay.
There's- What about if it's on the ankle though? Because there's a lot more of those, I think, than the tramp stamp, the small of the back. No.
Nope.
What about the back of the neck?
Nope.
No.
I'm
Just
very
the small of the back?
peculiar on this one.
What if it's a large butterfly on the small of the back?
That's fine.
What if it's a small butterfly, but it's
As
a
long as
large
it's a butterfly.
but it's a large back?
Maybe not. Less likely to have a conversation with that butterfly.
All right, just checking.
But you never know.
We got to figure out where the limits are.
You can't always eat steak. I'm always down for a hamburger.
We got to figure out where the limits are. What's the definition here, right? So
If it's on his back, absolutely not.
Oh, wow.
No matter what he says.
What have we done? We have created a monster. We still haven't really talked about this article from, where's it from anyway?
Epoch Times?
Oh, the Epoch Times. The explainer of the January 6th insurrection.
We're still not going to.
A coup d'etat? A revolution? Question mark? That first Wednesday in January 2021, however, was none of the above.
Dun, dun, dun.
We'll talk more about this, plus more of your calls and thoughts and whatever the heck else comes up. It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
You are supply, and lately there's lots of demand. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Before the pandemic, websites were offering to help you find a job. Back to the future. The help wanted sign is everywhere. So this may be a good time to ask for a raise. The boss will be all ears if you've taken on extra duties while the shop is short-handed. Otherwise, test the waters. You will seem like quite the catch if you ask questions that demonstrate you've done your homework and if you seem eager to pitch in. And when it's time to talk turkey, let them bring it up and assume it's their opening bid. And this is when to ask about benefits, overtime, and other details. For instance, is there a place to park? How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Iranian state media reported that at least 100 people were killed in 2 explosions in the city of Kerman. The people had been gathering to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a US airstrike 4 years ago. Julia Chapman has more.
Footage on state television showed rescue workers at the scene of the incident. A spokesperson for the Red Crescent said waves of crowds were making it difficult to move injured people. Earlier, a local news agency had reported that several gas canisters had exploded in the area, but officials in the region later called the incident a terrorist attack. Qasem Soleimani was one of the country's most prominent figures, widely considered to have been the second most powerful man in Iran. He led the Al-Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guard, designated a terrorist organization by the US for its role in overseas operations. Soleimani was assassinated in 2020 in an American drone strike while visiting Iraq.
Authorities in Japan say the Coast Guard plane that collided with a passenger jet at Tokyo's airport wasn't cleared for takeoff when the accident happened. 5 crew members aboard the Coast Guard plane were killed. Patrick Falk reports.
Transcripts of traffic control released by Japanese authorities appear to show the Coast Guard plane that was hit by Japan Airlines 516 hadn't been cleared for takeoff when the accident occurred on Tuesday. The collision left 5 crew members dead and the captain of the Coast Guard plane in critical condition. But the circumstances remain unclear and investigations are ongoing. Experts say it normally takes more than one error for such accidents to occur. Authorities are still trying to determine why the plane was on the runway at the time. Reports also say a strip of lights embedded in the tarmac at Haneda Airport to prevent wrong turns was out of service at the time. Patrick Falk, Tokyo.
The European Union and several member states have condemned the Israeli government for suggesting that Palestinians could be resettled and that Israeli settlements be built in Gaza. The comments from Israel's security and finance ministers drew criticism from the United Nations. Alex Cadier reports.
Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Sweden, France and others have all joined the European Union in condemning comments made by Israeli Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The ministers suggested that Palestinians in Gaza should be subject to so-called voluntary resettlement and that any vacated areas could make way for Israeli settlements in the Strip. The comments drew condemnation from some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States and United Kingdom. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, called the comments inflammatory and irresponsible, and that any resettlement of Palestinians would be a grave violation of international law. Alex Cadier, Brussels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Russia and Ukraine held their biggest exchange of war prisoners since the February 2022 invasion. In a deal mediated by the United Arab Emirates, Moscow and Kyiv swapped over 200 captive soldiers each. The arrangement was not hampered by a massive missile strike Moscow launched on Ukraine on New Year's Eve. Kyiv says another prisoner exchange may happen in the next couple of weeks. Daria Bondarchuk reports.
The exchange of prisoners was the first since August last year. Moscow has exchanged 230 Ukrainian servicemen for 248 Russian military personnel previously held by Kyiv. Negotiations apparently were underway as both sides were engaged in an escalating cycle of air assaults. Neither side has disclosed how many prisoners are still in their custody. The Russian defense minister referred to the negotiation process as complex and said the exchange was possible thanks to the humanitarian mediation efforts of the United Arab Emirates. Daria Bondarchuk, Moscow.
Former Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius has been released from prison on parole almost 11 years after murdering his girlfriend. The disgraced South African sprinter shot Reeva Steenkamp through a door multiple times and claimed he thought she was a burglar. From Pretoria, Ollie Barrett reports.
South African officials say that Oscar Pistorius is now at home. He will face strict parole conditions. No consumption of alcohol, no media interviews allowed. He will have to continue rehabilitation programs around gender-based violence and anger management issues. June Steenkamp, the mother of Reeva, has issued a statement saying that she is not opposed to Oscar Pistorius' controversial release from prison on parole. He will remain under these parole conditions until the end of his sentence in 2029.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was The Week in...
Police in Lehman, Michigan describe a local student's recently foiled plans to commit a deadly school shooting as, quote, embarrassingly bad. Authorities apprehended 17-year-old Trent Bayer Thursday after finding him in an empty hallway struggling to load a pathetically small caliber pistol while simultaneously attempting to unfold an inaccurate map of the school. Lehman Police Chief Ethan Holman elaborated several ways Bayer's strategy could have been more effective, including setting off a homemade explosive in the teacher's lounge, executing popular students first, and at the very least purchasing some military fatigues.
You're not going to intimidate anyone by wearing a tucked-in button-down shirt and pleated trousers.
In other news, a jar of change on a dresser is sadly factoring into a number of financial decisions. A teen zebra doesn't give a shit how much you honk, it's not getting out of the road. And Dad's new 20-year-old Thai boyfriend really sucks at categories. And don't forget to never ever drink Pepsi Cola, whose dipshit marketing team backed out of a full-page ad buy at the last minute. For more news, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in and listening to tonight's broadcast of Free Talk Live, where we bring you thoughts and perspectives from peace, freedom, liberty.
It's a broadcast for the narrow-minded. Maybe. I don't know. Let's work on it.
All right. Narrow band broadcast,
okay.
not narrow mind.
All right.
Do you prefer your broads narrow?
Generally, yes.
Or wide?
We just talked about this with the butterflies.
Oh, we did, didn't we?
It's true.
In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
Before we go on and get to more of your calls and our stories, you can learn more about the awesome things happening in New Hampshire in our march toward liberty in our lifetime. Our friends at Porcupine Real Estate are hosting a series of webinars to educate you on the expanded freedoms enjoyed by New Hampshire citizens. Reserve your seat today at move.freetalklive.com. Topics include gun freedom, medical freedom, political freedom victories. They also have a couple on best practices for moving to the free state and finding housing. These webinars are sure to be super helpful, and they're free to attend once you've registered at move.freetalklive.com. You can visit their YouTube channel, Porcupine Real Estate, for videos from past presentations, and you can sign up for upcoming webinars for free at move.freetalklive.com. Thank you, Mark Warden and Porcupine Real Estate. You guys really do have freedom in mind, and thank you for your assistance to everybody who has moved here thus far. I know Mark Warden actually did. He came all the way out to Keene, New Hampshire when I was looking to buy. Mark Edge was kind enough to, go out to look at my first look, right? The first thing, I'm like, I'm considering this property. And he invited the other, so I had two Marks, which, I'm surprised time didn't warp or there wasn't, a black hole or something. But I had two Marks. I was armed with two Marks.
In Spanish, that would be like Marky Mark.
It would, or Richie Rich. Did you take Richie Rich from Marky Mark?
No.
Did you get that idea from him?
No, I got it from the comic character.
Oh, okay.
But then I changed the spelling for copyright rules.
I got you. Yeah.
And I'm not a rapper, so I'm not infringing on that dude's.
Gotta avoid the man. At any rate, Mark Warden, while he doesn't do a whole lot of business himself out in the southwestern corner of New Hampshire, he was able to recommend somebody a little more local who had over 25 years of experience in the area and was definitely, we'll say, libertarian friendly to help me in my search. So thank you again, Mark Warden. We have more to talk about, but first let's go to, I believe this is David Ridley calling. David, you're on the Free Talk Live.
Yeah, with the NH exit hearing coming up on January 12th at the State House, I had a couple of thoughts of how we could improve on how we did last time.
Okay.
So we had good turnout at this this legislation last in 2022 that would allow New Hampshireites to vote on New Hampshire independence. We have a similar bill this session, and what we got wrong last time was that almost everybody testified about policy, or they just said they didn't like the federal government, but not. I don't think anyone explained how the federal government had hurt them personally. And so state reps want to hear what happened to you, if possible, or at least what happened to someone you care about. It needs to be personal. That's what makes good testimony. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I think you have a good point there. If you can give an example of how some harm, monetary harm, property harm, something like that, came to you as a result of the federal government, I think that'll go far.
Or you could explain how you'll benefit personally from independence. But for what I'm going to do is tell them about an incident that happened in 2006 where I went and did a demonstration in a state tax office, a New Hampshire state tax office. Mm-hmm. Then I went and did the identical demonstration, basically, in a federal tax office in New Hampshire, but it was federal.
Yeah.
So the state office, the New Hampshire office, the commissioner came out, shook my hand, answered my questions. The federal office had me arrested.
Oh, jeez.
So all I was doing was, just staying there holding a sign and handing out flyers. Well, it's illegal to hand out flyers.
No, it isn't.
Under federal law.
I remember.
On public federal property. So that just tells you right there how different the two institutions are, how much more benign the New Hampshire government is, and how much more I'd rather be governed by it than D.C. So that's the kind of testimony. What happened to you along those lines with the federal government? How did it hurt you? How did you tell it was different from other types of government?
So how else can people help with this?
With the testimony.
That and or NH Exit in general. I mean, how can where can people find out more information, and how can they contribute?
Well, if you go to forum.shiresociety.com, that's where you'll see in writing what I'm talking about today. So that's just the most recent thing. But forum.shiresociety.com. You can't really go wrong. It's always more updated than any of the NH Exit websites. And one other thing is, if you're going to testify, if you're thinking about testifying, or maybe if you're thinking about not testifying, you don't think you have anything great to say, or you don't like speaking, it's still good to go ahead and sign up. Sign the pink card, to fill out the pink card that says you want to testify, and then when they call you, you can just say, "I support the bill, but I yield my time." And then you yield your time to someone who has to leave early, or just anyone. And state reps really like that because it doesn't take up any of their time.
Okay.
What happens during your testimony against the federal government, the state government realizes that they're doing similar things to you locally?
Well, I don't know. Independence is just the freedom to mismanage our own affairs, right? We'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
All right.
Just to recap here, what I've got in front of me, David, correct me if I'm wrong, 8:30 a.m., Friday, January 12th, sort of an outside demonstration, sign waving, that kind of thing, followed an hour later by the hearing. And this hearing and a related secession hearing are likely to take up most of the day. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, cool. Anything else you want to talk about tonight?
That is all, and thank you.
Hey, Mr. Ridley, we appreciate your work. Keep it up, man, and keep us informed. Thanks for the call. 603-283-6160. That Jason Gearhart, that guy.
Yeah.
He's behind this.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that dude.
I like what he's doing. He put forth something, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it was something like, if the federal debt, exceeds, and this might be related,
whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is, which is, it's going to happen next week, Tuesday or something. I don't know.
Very soon.
Pretty soon. But if that happens, then something gets put on the ballot to decide whether or not the residents of New Hampshire want to secede from the federal government.
I don't generally like politicians.
Yeah.
So he would fall into that category.
Right.
Except that he served time
Yeah,
for the
he-
whole Ed and Elaine Brown
He
fiasco.
certainly walked the walk, and now
Right.
he's on a mission.
Right.
And
so I extend a little courtesy knowing what he did prior to his life in politics.
there are a few people around here like that I extend that courtesy to as well. Santanastasso is one of them.
Okay.
Because I've met these people.
I don't know his story. Backstory.
Yeah, and it's fine, and we can talk about that another time. But everybody has to decide for themselves how to contribute to
I get
this
it.
thing. And while I have come to the conclusion that it's, in my opinion, it's futile to try and infiltrate the state and change it from the inside, right? That's my opinion. Now, who am I to say somebody else can't do that?
I get it.
Right?
But
I'm
in
not
his case,
I'm not gonna ridicule a guy for doing what he thinks is the correct thing, or at least shining some light on this thing, right? I've always maintained that if you are going to join the mafia, the government, that the first reason you should do it for is publicizing why the state sucks.
Yeah.
Right. This is one of the reasons why I have respect for people like Ron Paul. Yes, he was a politician. Yes, he had to vote on things, and yes,
And
he
had two first names.
And yes, he had two first names. But at the same time, his campaigns brought more people to the cause of liberty, and even as far as anarchism,
sure,
right, than anyone else that I can remember in history.
Okay. I think my contention is too many people stopped in politics and didn't make it all the way to anarchism.
Right.
Because Ron Paul demonstrated a path through politics. And I'm not saying that's what Jason Gearhart is doing, but I'm also saying he walked the walk for quite a long time, showed the alternative to politics, and did his time for that.
Yeah, I would welcome New Hampshire secession. That's
no
where
doubt.
I'm at with it, right?
Yep.
I would welcome it. So more power to you guys, and keep up the work.
I'm also still hoping that the Republican Party of Texas will get out of the way because they got all the signatures that they needed to get secession put on the ballot this year.
I heard on maybe it was Wednesday or Thursday they were talking about who do you think is going to secede first, New
Texas.
Hampshire or Texas?
Texas,
Why?
guaranteed.
Because they've already got the signatures.
Well, so for one thing, and really the biggest thing is this, Texans already consider themselves an independent nation. They really do think of Texas as its own country.
Well, I remember growing
New
up and
Hampshire,
everybody saying that Texas was the only one that had it written in the Constitution of Texas whenever they were acquired by
And
the
that helps.
United States that they could secede if they wanted to. And but
But more
that
importantly-
is proven to be not true. That's not actually a true statement. There's something like that can kind of, but it's not exactly a true statement. My impression of New Hampshire, particularly with the Free State Project, was that you couldn't do something like secede with a state the size of Texas simply because of the sheer population size, that you weren't going to be able to get all of those people to agree, or even 51% of them to agree to secede.
Oh, I think you absolutely
whereas with a smaller population, it would be easier to do so.
Well, let's also point out that the Free State Project is not as welcome by the natives as we like to believe it is.
There is that. But so in Texas, there's something like 70% of Republicans, according to polling data, would vote to secede from the U.S.
Right.
And it's close to half of Democrats. So it is an overwhelming majority of Texans already are in favor of asserting their own nationality.
And with respect to the Free State Project, I realize that, yes, they may not be as welcomed by natives as we like them to be. And there might be some good reasons for that on an individual basis. However, this state still is the live free or die state.
That is correct.
And it has some of the fewest laws in the nation. There is a spirit of freedom here amongst the natives that I think aligns very well with libertarian thought.
Then this should have happened in 2022 when they last proposed it.
Well, and so that I think is actually the difference. So, yes, there is a live free or die spirit in New Hampshire. Yes, that is fundamentally libertarian in its nature.
Mm-hmm.
But that's different from having their own culture to the point that they see themselves as a different country. People that live in New Hampshire still see themselves as Americans.
Right.
Always have, and until we can change that, they will continue to see themselves as a particular kind
I don't know
of
that that's
American.
even true. Like, I discovered this band Scissor Fight, who are from here. Back in the late 90s, they were one of these bands that like nearly got signed. No, not Scissoring, Scissor Fight. They have an album called Granite State Destroyer. Right, the opening track I think is called Granite State Destroyer, and the opening lyric is, "Weed, guns, and axes. We don't pay our taxes because we don't exist on any government list." Now, this is a markedly non-libertarian, non-anarchic outfit, rock and roll outfit, right? They're just rock and roll, right? But these are lyrics that came from them. They're all New Hampshire natives. Right? So this is art coming from New Hampshire out of like the mid to late 90s that is libertarian in essence.
Right.
Right? So I don't know that there isn't...
Look at that exactly. So we don't pay our taxes, but we recognize that you should still have the right to try and tax us. We just won't pay them. So they're still American. They still expect the U.S. to try to tax them
because
and
we don't
fail.
exist on any government list. I mean,
if it was rock and roll in the 90s, it was also likely counterculture,
right?
Which means the
That's
vast
true.
majority of people did not share those opinions.
Right. Yeah. Whereas, and
is a sad
ironically,
thing about rock and roll.
The problem is Texas might actually become an incredibly authoritarian state in short order after seceding.
Oh, they will be. On the abortion topic alone.
Oh yeah, on certain topics they absolutely will be very authoritarian.
Yeah.
Don't expect that you can smoke pot without going to jail in the new Texan Republic.
But the dead fetuses can carry guns.
The dead fetuses will carry guns.
Yeah, they'll be
It'll be assigned at birth?
No, conception.
Oh, okay.
First breath. Conception?
Yes.
Really? Somebody's going to go up in there with a little mini... No, anyway.
That's when it becomes a person, and that's when it needs the right to defend its life. So, yes, it will be mandatory gun insertions for all pregnant women.
There's also a
though?
big difference between taking a life and letting a life expire when it comes to that debate as well.
Can you imagine, though? Like, I've always maintained that it's easy
I
to
only
prove...
let your life expire as I choked you.
It's easy to prove that government does not care about you. Right? Very easy. Right?
Yes.
Because if government did care about you, the very first thing it would do, like military strategy 101, right, is
arm you.
You can't, like, the hardest place to take over is a heavily armed population, right? So if government cared about you and was worried about some other country coming in and taking over their turf or whatever to tax you instead of them, right, the first thing they would do is arm you. So much so that they would make it mandatory for you to be armed. They would give you guns and ammunition.
Like they gave the Ukrainians to defend against the Russians.
Right. Exactly.
Right. It's the first thing you do when you are defending a territory is to arm the population that's in that territory.
So they obviously don't care about you, and they care about you even less because of all of the things they're trying to do to disarm you.
Yep.
So it's very easy. So can you imagine, though, like, let's just say Texas does go first, right, for hypothetical example.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden Texas is like, all right, it's a lawed land. Every man, woman, and child gets a firearm. Here you go.
They're gonna have to defend a war on two fronts.
Which fronts?
The Mexican invasion and the Americans trying to take Texas back.
Would there people be really trying to take it back?
I don't know.
Like,
yeah, who would want that?
You think again? This is something that comes up all the time. Do you think the United States federal government is just going to let Texas go?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
All right.
Well, consider this. right now we're sort of at this point where there's the Texas and Florida side.
Texas is pretty well armed.
I got it.
Well, no, I mean, like, democratically speaking, and like with the laws and everything, with the culture, there's sort of Texas and Florida on one side and New York and California on the other side.
Okay.
So if Texas secedes, it will just be New York and California.
Okay.
And there are a lot of people that very much want that.
All right.
So, yeah, no, there's a really good chance that they will just let them go. Also, they're really well armed, so it's like not worth trying to take them over.
Unless you can get them fighting on the other side as well, right? And that's that two-front theory.
Yeah, two fronts is not wise, just from a...
They're already trying to keep the Mexicans out. They're fighting the border wall thing.
Dude, there's already more Mexicans in Texas than, I mean, really anywhere. Maybe California.
I get it.
Yeah, I think that would actually solve their border crisis.
Okay.
All of the Mexicans who are currently crossing in Texas would just move to like Arizona because they want to get into the U.S. And if Texas is no longer part of the U.S., where they have a welfare state, because believe me, Texas as a republic is not going to have a welfare state.
Texas is smart. They just take everybody that's there illegally and be like, poof, you're a citizen.
I don't know how well thought out this theory is, but I have had it proposed, right? Like the Mexicans that enter into California and all the other states, consider themselves Mexicans.
Yeah.
And the Mexicans that enter into Texas consider themselves Texans.
Right.
So
maybe
they have an ally.
I mean,
they're still trying to keep them out currently.
In my brain, I hope that that's how it turns out. I think that if Texas does secede, that they have an enormous resource in front of them, a human resource, that is the Mexicans who want to come over.
That won't take the welfare because they won't have it.
Right. And the ones who want to work to make a life for themselves, right? And they're willing to do so, right? Those are the people that you welcome.
Yeah, and the conservative leanings of Texans is perfectly in line with the Catholic leanings of Mexicans.
Yeah.
So it may very well be the opposite of a two-front war.
All right.
Like, in fact, they might be such allies with Mexico that it helps defend them against the U.S. even trying to invade.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
I hope that happens.
I mean, best case scenario for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. And man, it would warm my heart to see something like that.
I think that there is a lot more cultural commonality between Mexico and Texas than between Texas and, say, California.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
certainly.
Then why are the people in Texas so hell-bent on keeping out the Mexicans then?
The welfare.
Yeah. Is that the only thing?
I swear to God,
but if the ones coming in aren't getting on the welfare, though,
it's two things. One of them is the welfare, and the other is the political shift.
Okay.
Yeah, I swear to God, if welfare was just gotten rid of, the whole immigrant thing goes away. Everybody's problem with it goes away. Because if welfare just doesn't exist, there's no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the actual solution.
Yeah.
It's why it's so irritating to me to hear someone who is ordinarily fairly rational, say Molyneux, for example, who goes hardcore on no, we got to build a wall, and that's why we got to support Trump, instead of taking the principled position of no, what we have to do is end the welfare state.
Right.
There is concern on the conservative front that the open borders are letting in terrorist sleeper cells, and they will just heighten that propaganda. How many Hamas people have gotten in through the open borders so far? Like, there are people concerned about that now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. So if you get rid of the welfare state, they'll still hammer on, you got to close the borders because you're letting in terrorists.
I mean, that's a whole other thing. But I don't think
shift the propaganda.
I don't think that issue is as wide as the welfare issue.
It will be if you solve the welfare issue. That will be the problem.
That's true.
By default, yes, but I still don't think, even if they propagandize that thing to its fullest extent, I don't think it'll ever grow to the largesse of the welfare problem.
Oh, you haven't paid attention to local Texan politics. They are really focused on the Muslim threat. Like, seriously, they are largely convinced that there is a communist Muslim alliance that is a very existential threat to them.
603-283-6160 is the phone number if you'd like to join the conversation tonight. Who do you think will secede first? Texas? New Hampshire? Oregon? South Dakota? Hawaii? Nebraska? Let us know. Long Island?
Alaska.
We don't know. Give us a call. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Iranian state media reported that at least 100 people were killed in 2 explosions in the city of Kerman. The people had been gathering to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a US airstrike 4 years ago. Julia Chapman has more.
Footage on state television showed rescue workers at the scene of the incident. A spokesperson for the Red Crescent said waves of crowds were making it difficult to move injured people. Earlier, a local news agency had reported that several gas canisters had exploded in the area, but officials in the region later called the incident a terrorist attack. Qasem Soleimani was one of the country's most prominent figures, widely considered to have been the second most powerful man in Iran. He led the Al-Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guard, designated a terrorist organization by the US for its role in overseas operations. Soleimani was assassinated in 2020 in an American drone strike while visiting Iraq.
Authorities in Japan say the Coast Guard plane that collided with a passenger jet at Tokyo's airport wasn't cleared for takeoff when the accident happened. 5 crew members aboard the Coast Guard plane were killed. Patrick Falk reports.
Transcripts of traffic control released by Japanese authorities appear to show the Coast Guard plane that was hit by Japan Airlines 516 hadn't been cleared for takeoff when the accident occurred on Tuesday. The collision left 5 crew members dead and the captain of the Coast Guard plane in critical condition. But the circumstances remain unclear and investigations are ongoing. Experts say it normally takes more than one error for such accidents to occur. Authorities are still trying to determine why the plane was on the runway at the time. Reports also say a strip of lights embedded in the tarmac at Haneda Airport to prevent wrong turns was out of service at the time. Patrick Falk, Tokyo.
The European Union and several member states have condemned the Israeli government for suggesting that Palestinians could be resettled and that Israeli settlements be built in Gaza. The comments from Israel's security and finance ministers drew criticism from the United Nations. Alex Cadier reports.
Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Sweden, France and others have all joined the European Union in condemning comments made by Israeli Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The ministers suggested that Palestinians in Gaza should be subject to so-called voluntary resettlement and that any vacated areas could make way for Israeli settlements in the Strip. The comments drew condemnation from some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States and United Kingdom. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, called the comments inflammatory and irresponsible, and that any resettlement of Palestinians would be a grave violation of international law. Alex Cadier, Brussels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
We have a pretty good name here to mention.
Oh, so you're already chuckling at the live read?
I'm already chuckling at the live read. I am. It's true. I picked it up and I laughed. I've read this person's name before because, I've been doing this thing for like 4-ish years now.
Okay.
I think my 5-year will be on like September or something.
We got to talk about that. Not your like my anniversary is always marked by like Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
I don't know when Super Bowl Sunday is.
February or something or another.
Okay, but I may want to, be on
to
to celebrate.
But it has moved.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, because they expanded the season by like an extra game for every team. So I think it moved like 2 weeks. I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
I don't know the exact day. I could look up the exact day, but I've always marked it as Super Bowl Sunday.
Okay,
that's my free talk anniversary.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
so
and
that's
we will
your
talk about
basis of time
for this show.
Is
yes,
what the NFL says.
Yes.
Huh.
Well, at least to mark his Free Talk Live anniversary.
It's less unreasonable than saying that the president can decide when daylight savings time gets shifted to.
Sure.
It is Free Talk Live. The telephone number 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Richie Rich.
Before we go on, I have to say thank you to Alex Weed. Chuckle. Alex Weed is a platinum level amplifier. What does that mean?
$25.
$25 a month Alex gives to Free Talk Live for the purposes of advertising, marketing, promoting, and supporting this radio program. Alex enjoys the hosts, the co-hosts, the topics, the callers, the perspective that we bring to the airwaves of freedom, liberty, and prosperity, so much so that he thinks it is the best use of his Liberty dollar to give that to us so that we may get this program onto more radio stations. We're currently on somewhere between 180 and 200 stations at last count. We could be on more. We could be on 250, 300, 350, not out of the question. It's all up to you. If you find value in what we do, if you love this program, if you like the hosts, the co-hosts, and the perspective we bring, please consider becoming an amplifier at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Thank you again, Alex Weed. We appreciate you.
And if we're on more radio stations, then we don't have to put the same show on the same radio station twice at the same time. We can distribute that more equitably.
Let's go right away to your calls and thoughts. We have Dana calling from Michigan. Dana, you're on Free Talk Live.
This comment, can you guys hear me? Because I got a dead spot in my house.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. This is for Peakless. You were talking about secession, Texas seceding, and then the possibility of them turning authoritarian after they seceded. And the example, the first thing out of your mouth was their attitude towards abortion.
I might have brought that up initially, but yeah.
Well, let me finish. So what's more authoritarian than taking someone else's life? That is exactly what Mao did, Stalin, Lenin, Pol Pot.
United States.
I could go on. And even you guys claim U.S. involvement and innocent civilians being killed in the different wars that we have participated in.
Yep.
I think that is so antithetical to libertarianism and conservatism. I think you guys need to focus outside the womb first and fix those problems before you decide to start sucking the life out of women's wombs.
Sure. Like that's reasonable until you read stories about an unviable fetus that Texas won't let be removed from the woman, even though it's going to turn into nothing. It will be born still. It's causing her medical complications, and they have medically kidnapped her by not allowing her to even leave the state where she can go get a medical procedure to remove the unviable fetus. Right? Like that's authoritarian.
My response to that is apparently you haven't read that she did leave the state. She was not kidnapped, and there were multiple doctors that came forward, said they had successfully treated, I think it was trichomy 18 or something like that, successfully treated that, and both boys and girls are living full, healthy lives. She wasn't even willing to try
to
have the baby and have it treated. And
I think, Dana,
guys, these are world-renowned. Let me finish my sentence, Captain. They're world-renowned doctors that specialize in this, and she wouldn't even try. You know what? That's why they call it faith. You've got to put it in a higher power. Either you believe or you don't. But I don't want to argue.
Okay, well, hold on. You want to bring up faith. You want to bring up a higher power. Let's talk about the Bible. Now, the Bible puts a very specific difference on what you do to someone who kills a baby versus what you do to someone who causes a woman to miscarry. So in your basis of faith, they still discern between a fetus and a baby.
Before we go getting upset about things and definitions and whatnot, it is a little bit hyperbolic, Dana, for you to tell us that we are attempting to legislate people's wombs. Nobody in this room is in control of anybody's womb. None of us are removing fetuses from wombs or anything like that ourselves.
Did I say that?
You insinuated. You insinuated. You said before you go deciding on what does and doesn't get removed from women's wombs, you should blah 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 about yourself instead. So that is what you said.
No, that's not what I said. I'll repeat what I said.
Okay, go ahead.
Before you involve yourself in someone's womb, why don't you focus on the problems we have outside of the womb? I didn't say anything about getting in the, removing anything or you ending life. I said before you get into the womb. It wasn't I, the Peakless, that brought up abortion.
Actually, I didn't bring up abortion. That wasn't my go-to. My go-to, like, again, people can't tell the difference between Richie Rich and me, and it's really becoming
maybe
a problem.
Rob was really on your side then.
It's really becoming a problem. I brought up cannabis. Now, at the moment, they are somewhat limited on what they will do to you for possession of cannabis. If they become a republic of their own, that will skyrocket. They will absolutely become terrifying to the people who choose to have the wrong flower.
Yeah, what we were trying to get at, Dana, was we were trying to objectively...
I was watching you
Dana.
guys. I know who said the example.
It's the long-haired guy with the beard.
Right, yeah. Well, that excludes me.
I know who you guys are. I was watching you, and I've watched you before. What I'm saying is the first thing he used about authoritarianism was abortion. The second example was immigration, and he got off abortion. I know what I heard, but more importantly, I know what I saw. I was watching you, Peakless. I'm just mad as hell that you guys went there. That makes me mad. Because that is so
you can be mad all you want about it. That's what Texas is going to do.
Do you believe that people should be put to death for abortions?
No.
That is what they will do when they become their own country. They will put people to death for murder, for causing abortions. That is what they're going to do with that power.
I don't believe they have to show me.
And you're naive.
Okay. Well, hey, Dana, thank you for the call. We do appreciate you. 603-283-6160. I mean, the fact of the matter is that none of us were talking about what we're going to do or what we do. We were putting forth a hypothetical of what might happen when Texas, or prediction even, what might happen when Texas secedes based on its current political climate.
Yeah. Christian conservative values, forget about it. You're not, like you said, you're not going to get your drugs. You're not going to get, you're not going to get your women's rights as far as abortion is concerned.
Yeah, there will be absolutely draconian sentences for owning the wrong flower if they get that level of autonomy.
Amongst other things.
Now, on the bright, I mean, it's not all bad. There will probably be much better gun ownership laws than currently exist there. There will be a lot of positive changes, I'm sure. But they will also be very likely to go very authoritarian on social matters.
I would love to see all of the states secede so that we can have what I like to call the beginning of a political market. The market for freedom, if you will, does exist. And when states start having to compete with other states for their citizenry, right, i.e., provide the most amount of goods or services for the least amount of taxation, stuff like that. Once that begins to happen, right, once that competition kicks in and these states have to compete with each other, then reduction of the government to zero becomes almost inevitable.
I mean, there's like 180 countries, man. Don't you already have that? Is that not enough competition for you?
No, because they don't act competitively.
Okay, so you think with 50, you add 49 new states that all of a sudden there's going to be competition in the market?
I do.
Okay,
it adds that much more competition. Yes.
Well, you got 180 competitors now, and you're saying they're already in collusion and not acting competitively.
So if you just look at America's history, when there was a less developed federal government, there was a lot more difference from state to state.
I got it.
And because of that, there were a lot more possibilities being explored.
I mean, hell, even when I grew up, man, like when I was 12 or something, the drinking age in Wisconsin was like, I think it was 18.
I got it.
But like across the border was 21.
No, I understand what you're saying.
And that's just recent history.
But there's a lot of countries in Europe. There's a lot of countries in South America.
And let's just take it to, let's just, hang on, Peakless.
There's a barrier
Peakless.
to entry
Peakless.
for that, though.
Hang on. Let's just take an example of today. Why is the Free State Project attractive to people?
I don't know. It's not the women.
Okay. It's because they have selected a state that most, the one state that most represents libertarian values. That is New Hampshire.
But
right? That makes it attractive. That is competition, right? New Hampshire.
I understand that.
And so we already have this in a small way. Once you get the federal government out of the way, the states are then free to become more different from each other instead of homogenized, because the federal government does things like holds your road money hostage if you don't conform.
How is that competition any different from any other country in Europe or any other country in Africa or any other country in South America?
Because there's a huge cultural barrier to entry by not speaking the same language, by not having remotely similar customs.
So they're not competing for citizenry?
They're not competing for English-speaking citizens of this general culture. So, like, if I drop you off in Kenya, you will not get along well. You don't speak the language. You don't know what's expected of you. You won't get along with the people there.
Okay.
Now, if I drop you off in Connecticut, you might be upset, but you're not going to starve.
Okay. If you drop me off in England or Ireland or Scotland, I speak the language.
Right.
I don't have the same accent.
Right. You speak
They're not competing.
Drop me off in Ireland, at least for a while.
No, I would absolutely say that at the moment, England and America are very strongly competing over, to the extent that they are different.
Okay.
They compete over English-speaking people.
Okay.
To the extent that the United States would be a much different multicultural conglomeration of geographic areas without the federal government, the European Union would be the same without, the European Union.
Okay.
Right. So all of those countries would be less homogenized than they are because they also have the equivalent of a federal government over them.
Well, that's in history, that's relatively new.
Still exists.
I got you. But so before that, you're saying they weren't competing for citizenry? Like across 180 countries, they want, maximum citizenry. The governments want maximum taxation amongst that population. But right now they won't compete. And if we just eliminate one of those and replace it with 49 new ones, all of a sudden we have this increased competition in the marketplace?
So if you,
for countries?
Yes.
Okay.
And
if
I
you
say
believe that, that's fine.
No, I say that because government is the opposite of competition.
Well, but you're going to have 49 new governments.
It disincentivizes competition.
Then why would you introduce more governments?
Well, the same amount of governments would exist. We'd be eliminating one.
No, you'd have 49 new countries on the world stage.
Well, those 49 countries already exist.
This is getting into semantics. So, yes, you are eliminating one federal government.
Right.
And there are currently 50 state governments.
Right.
Whether or not that counts as a government is really subjective.
It's going to if they're now their own country on the world stage.
Yeah. I mean, to that extent.
So basically, his question seems to me to be, how is it going to improve matters when you are increasing the number of national governments? Because national governments have really been a problem.
And also to the problem is of the 180 governments currently in operation, allegedly are not competing for citizenry, but these 49 will. That seems like a bizarre claim and a stretch, because either all governments do want to compete for citizenry and maximize their taxes, or they don't.
Right.
If that's what governments do, then the 180 should already be doing that. And if they're not,
governments do not want to compete for citizenry.
Then why would these 49 new governments do it?
So I disagree. I think that the 180 governments are currently competing for citizenry. It's just that that's not a major priority.
Okay.
Whereas,
right, you're right. It's not. They're not driven by market forces,
right,
so that is not a driver.
Right.
That's not a primary driver.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the same would hold true for your 49.
Right. And well, no. So a big part of it is the difficulty of transition. So having the same language, having the same culture, more or less, having just being connected by land so that you can just drive there as opposed to having to cross an ocean is actually a pretty big difference.
All right.
Like if I wanted to move to England, that is way more difficult than leaving New England.
Okay.
It also gives the opportunity, right? Like there's an opportunity there for some things to happen, for states to differentiate themselves one from another and that kind of thing that they don't currently have the option to do.
I guess if you limit it to the English-speaking world, fine, but I'll go back to my example, South America, Africa, Europe, right? There's some homogeny there in language in each geographic area, so they ought to be competing the same way you think the states will be competing, but what I've heard so far is that they're not.
I can't speak because I'm not educated on that particular area of the world. Most of my life has been spent in the United States.
All right.
So
I'd say there is definitely some competition from country to country in South America over population.
All right, fair enough.
And also, just even having moved here from Washington State, right? I'm so glad because my advantages here are significantly more than they were there, and that's with a federal government. Now, am I a unique thing within that? Perhaps I've taken advantage of the arbitrage between states, right? I've gone from one state that was more authoritarian by far to one that is less authoritarian by far, with regarding taxes, that kind of stuff, and the amount of laws and that kind of thing. But to me, that's important. So I'm going to obviously be driven towards something like that. To me, that's a primary driver, more freedom. Now, not everybody has that as their personal primary driver.
Some people care about climate.
Yeah.
So they go to California,
right,
where there is no freedom but great weather.
Right.
Well, in that case, then if you can already do that as far as the states competing already, right? The weather, the freedom, whatever.
Well, it just steps up the level of competition because of how much they are forced to be similar right now.
Okay.
So I think you're right that the existing nations do compete with each other for population on some level.
Okay.
And 179 countries is going to be less competitive than 180. 180 is going to be less competitive than 181, and 220 is going to be more competitive than 190.
Right.
Okay. But the original claim was that they're not being competitive now. So if we reject the original claim and say that for what you said, Peakless, that they are being competitive, then fine. It follows.
By default, they have to be slightly competitive, I guess.
Okay.
Right.
Right. But they would be more competitive had they been left alone by the federal government.
Okay.
Right. And so because the federal government is attempting to homogenize or make everything the same, right, we have less competition between the states. So if the states were, get this, more free to compete with each other, we would get more competition.
Yeah. And the same thing does exist on the nation level, just with organizations like the World Bank and the IMF.
Okay.
So they homogenize different countries so that they are less distinct from each other, so that there is less of that arbitrage opportunity for someone who wants a particular thing in their culture.
Got it. Again, if you change the original claim, I'm fine.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Good enough. Well, Well, we still got to fill like a couple minutes of air here, so
let's talk about the insurrection.
Let's go back over to this
Insurrection
article.
Day. We haven't done any of it.
It's true.
Let's celebrate.
Defining and understanding that historic day requires solid information, full context, and willingness to look beyond the narratives that began before January 6th was even a few hours old. January 6th is a much larger political and societal movement designed to usher in a, quote, new America, unquote, according to Victor Davis Hanson, an American classicist? Okay. Military historian and political commentator at the Hoover Institution. I heard the Hoover Institution really sucks.
Yep.
You get it?
Are we going to have like J6ers? Is that going to be like a thing? Yeah, I was a J6er.
Oh, yeah.
Back in 21, man.
Like they even like the FBI sent people out to find people who demonstrated on January 6th, not in D.C.
Yeah.
So if you demonstrated at, I don't know, the New Hampshire Capitol or whatever other places, your local town hall or whatever it is,
right.
Like they sent FBI agents out to find these people.
I get it. So this, we don't have much time for me to bring this up again, but this is part of the reason why collectivizing the enemy has to be a thing, because what the state will do is just this. They will allow you to have your protest collectively, do all that you want, and they will pick off every individual singularly along the way.
Right.
And so there's no collective defense when they're knocking on your door, right? Like you had your fun at the protest, but now you're going to get arrested and there's no one going to be around to support you.
Well,
and so communities need to stick together beyond that.
And this is the effect of having a uniparty. So if there was an actual tangible difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, then the Republicans would shore up their ranks when they got individually picked off. For example, when the guy with the bison hat
shaman.
Yeah, when the QAnon shaman got arrested, if the Republican Party had been different realistically from if the two parties had been realistically different, the Republican Party would have jumped to his defense and said, no, he's one of ours, you can't come after him,
hands off.
But they have been completely identical to the Democratic Party for so long that there is no collective defense.
I'm aware.
Why does January 6th matter? January 6th and its aftermath had a broad impact on American society. The U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, and the FBI launched an unprecedented use of federal power that, while currently wielded against people right of center, could easily be unleashed against any group.
You don't say.
The January 6th investigations and prosecutions have raised serious concerns about due process, pretrial detention, jail conditions, equal protection under the law, and, perhaps most significantly, First Amendment guarantees.
Any group that protests will be picked off individually later.
And I think the biggest thing about January 6th is it's a difference of how people perceive the event regardless of the information. And the same thing happened with COVID. If you were on this team, no matter what information you got presented with, you were going to believe the same thing because it became an article of faith. And for the people who are on the left, January 6th was an insurrection, and no data will possibly convince them otherwise.
Yeah, they've taken this word and applied it to something that doesn't fit the definition.
Well, and preventing Donald Trump from running for president in certain states.
But yeah, they think it was an attempted overthrow of the government, and no data will convince them otherwise.
We're out of time. Thank you to all of our callers. Thank you, Peakless. Thank you, Richie Rich, for joining me tonight. If you missed any part of tonight's show, go find the archives over at freetalklive.com. Thanks and peace.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you